Hey everybody, I'm going to take the time and welcome you to my channel. If you're new here, I want you to grab your sketchbooks, and even if you feel like you're not an artist, the whole point of this video and of my channel is to allow yourself to be more comfortable with the art process and to draw as well as you can so that you can build the confidence up to draw whatever you want later. Now you can see here I have a creepy little face happening. It's a light outline, which is on purpose. I'm going to tell you what the lesson is in a moment. But the tools that I'm using, it's a 4B Faber-Castell, and it's sharpened. So you want to make sure that your pencils are sharpened. I'm sketching on moleskin paper. It doesn't really matter what paper you're sketching on. What I care about most is that the paper itself is at least good enough quality where it can handle ink if you're sketching a ballpoint, and graphite also. If you're deciding to shade, keep this as traditional as possible. Okay, so what is today's lesson? We are going to be taking a light outline and we're going to be adding shading into it to make it as realistic as possible. This is a combo that is often not overlooked, but it becomes frustrating with a lot of artists because a lot of artists out there, a lot of beginner artists, will have really nice line work, but then when they start shading, it really looks bad, or they can't quite get the realism that they want. So the lesson today is I'm going to show you how shading can bring out that realism with the line work that you already have. All right, this is a very important lesson, so stick around because I'm going to show you how you can take this drawing right here and build it up so that the shading feels like the creature is living in an atmosphere on your paper. A 2D surface, you want to feel like your character or creature or prop, vehicle, whatever it is actually existing within an atmosphere on your 2D plane. Okay, so you can see here that I have a basic outline of the face. Now, you don't necessarily have to have the entire outline of a creature or subject matter drawn before you shade. Instead, I like doing it in sections just so I can gauge what's happening with the rest of the drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my pencil like this. See how it's lightly gripped and the butt of the pencil is way back here. I have the majority of the pencil exposed in the front. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's light as possible, but he'll still have a nice grip onto it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to very lightly shade across everything. So before you freak out and think that you're going to ruin the entire picture, I want you to realize that as long as the shading strokes are lighter than the line work that you put down, you won't mess up your darker lines. They'll always show up through the shading, which is why you need to build up the shading slowly so that you can continue to edit as you go. Speaking of editing, there's going to be no erasers, none whatsoever. If you feel like you need to erase, I want you to take a step back and look at your drawing and ask yourself, hey, is there any area on this thing where I can improve upon it without needing to erase it? Because a lot of times the pencil strokes that we have, they're good enough. We just have that habit of grabbing this thing. And by the way, I do have it. You can see that I use my eraser, okay, when I need to. I don't design by this thing. Okay. So you can see that I went in two directions. I went almost vertically, but it's a little slanted across the entire surface that I want to shade. The second thing that I did was I slightly turned the angle, and then I'm shading again, going over my previous strokes. So let me just show you what I did before. Okay, so what that does is it allows the very beginning stages of covering it with value. But oh, we're not done yet. So I'm going to take my sketchbook and I'm going to physically turn it. Now I know right away, this is a very controversial topic. Never ever turn your sketchbook, you might hear. Well, I beg to differ. Every single person on this planet that draws has a specific comfort angle when drawing. So, I mean, obviously all of our bodies are built differently, and we've learned how to apply strokes to the page differently. Whatever is most comfortable for you and whichever stroke produces the best line, keep it that way. Now, there is something to be said about learning how to draw at any angle without flipping your paper around. Yes, that is very true. However, if you want good control, stay with what works. There's no reason. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Okay, so right here, what we've done, I don't know, 4 or 5 different passes. And have you noticed, with 4 or 5 different passes, you can still see the line work of the creature's mouth and face. That's good. You don't want to press harder than the value of those original outlines. Okay, the second thing I want you to notice, here, let me straighten this up a little bit. Okay, you can kind of see the shading happening here. Have you noticed that I haven't even worried about staying within the lines? This is crucial. I'm not saying, hey, deliberately be messy and you know, screw trying to be technical and proficient. Like, no. We are building atmosphere. And in order to build atmosphere, you have to allow some of the lines to show and be crisp and other lines to fade off. It's just like sfumato. Okay, you can look that term up. Sfumato is allowing atmosphere to come in by showing lines that are in focus and lines that are not in focus. Painters use it all the time. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into this. Now, I'm already pretty confident about what I want with the eyes. So, I'm going to keep these eyes rather creepy and rounded with no corners on either side. Maybe a little bit. Okay, and once we have that, I already am pretty happy with the shape of the eyes and the size of them. I don't want any of you to darken what you have until you are 100% happy with the lines that are existing, because then you probably will have to jump to the eraser and you don't want to do that. But I always like to start to shade around the eye. So then what I'm going to do is I actually am going to press a little harder now. Okay, let me make sure that my arm is comfortable. So these pencil strokes are going to be a little tighter and they're a little close together, a little closer together. I can't even talk this morning. So you can see that the original shading that I had behind here, that's going to add, or that's going to be the foundation. Okay, it's going to slowly but surely start to fill up the gaps that I have in this face. Now, you can see that the shading is starting to show up here. So I'm going to be a little bit more precise and a little slower and methodical. And what I've also done was I turned my pencil more flat than before. Okay, so what that does is, I'm sure those of you that are more experienced in art, you know when we get that awesome flat spot on the side of the pencil, when we shade, we don't want to change that spot because the strokes look good, right? Well, that's what's happening essentially. So we're forming that flat spot on the tip, and we want to keep that angle there. So what I'm doing now is I'm making sure that I'm fading that off by pressing lighter. Okay, but we are not done yet, folks. So this is all about layering. This is all about patience. Okay, so let's turn this again. Turn the sketchbook down like this. Okay, so we can probably hit that eye area. And honestly, I mean, we can just start with the other eye too, in that same area. See how I'm going into the mouth? It doesn't matter, because I still have those outlines as a guide that I originally had in there. No, okay, so the other term that I'm going to throw out, you all know what it is. It's patience. You have to have patience when it comes to it. You have to. If you're trying to shortcut your art and you're trying to, you know, speed up the drawing process without really learning how to self-edit, then you're going to fail. So you have to methodically and surely build up the values around here. We're still not done with the values. but it's already looking like a real face. Kind of looks like a ghoulie from the 1980s and a snake. But we'll see where this goes. Okay, so what are some areas that I'm actually kind of happy with that I can darken probably? Well, I'm going to go to the corner of the mouth here, where the gum line and maybe the skin are. Right over here next to that tooth on the side. And then also, another thing I like doing is, if I'm happy with the teeth, then inside of the mouth, behind the teeth, I'm going to darken. So it allows me to darken the edges of the teeth so they can show up. Okay, now what I'm doing here is thick to thin, thick to thin, thick to thin. So I'm pressing a little harder and then I'm releasing on each brush stroke, or pencil stroke for that matter. Okay, there we go. If you're following along with me and you maybe are getting frustrated because you're not handling the pencil properly, it's just going to take time. It's going to take patience. Now, I'm going to add in some shading around that eye, but these are going to be smaller strokes. Okay, and now notice that the buildup is really coming into view. So you can see this is looking pretty smooth, but we still haven't done the eye socket yet. So if we want to start in that eye socket, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly, on top of the shading, put in an outline of where the eye socket will most likely be sitting. So even if we're making this creature up, which we are, you still have to make the body parts believable. Kind of ghost in that eye socket, leave room in between the line of the eye socket and the eyeball, because you need to put at least some form of eyelid down there. Now, let's say your creature is demonic, or a shark or a squid or something like that, where they don't really blink and they don't really have eyelids. That's fine. You can still add detail and personality around that eye by doing scars, wrinkles showing age, and maybe different bumps in the skin. But let's play along with what we have here. Okay, so I'm liking this. I'm just going to darken it a little bit. There we go. Okay, now everybody's different. So everybody out there that's a creature designer or a character designer, you might start your shading process at a different spot. Okay, now what I like doing is I always like building up off of the eye first, because for me, it kind of dictates the personality and the emotion that I'm going to get throughout the rest of the picture. If I feel like it has a good expression, and whether it's evil, whether it's friendly, whether, you know, it's kind of just there and not really showing any emotion, that's going to help me build up the rest of the creature. All right, so we have that part. Now, I want to think about all the places that I would outline this thing, but I don't want it to feel cel-shaded and cartoony. If you guys have styles that are more cartoony, that's totally fine. You can still make your creatures and your characters and everything you're drawing look realistic. But you need to be careful with that, because you still need to know dark to light, making sure your values are really nailed. Okay, so I'm just gonna put in some small circular strokes here. Now you can see that the eye is actually being built up quite nicely, and I used small, tiny circular strokes for that kind of shading inside there. You can see here the eyebrow that I started to add a little bit of the brow ridge and the muscles that sit right above the eye. Since I like that, I'm just going to lightly put in some shading where I know that the eyebrow muscle is going to be rolled under. I'm not throwing out any anatomical terms right now. It's just eyebrow muscle. You know, just in case beginners out there haven't really had experience with anatomy study or anything like that. Okay, now that I have that eye, I'm actually going to jump to the rest of the body. All right, so This is kind of a strange looking head, almost like a snake mixed with, I don't know, it kind of looks like Huggy Wuggy, if you guys know who Huggy Wuggy is. This is probably going to be a smaller creature, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it seem like a snarling little beast coming at us. Kind of like a fat little blob. I'm going to put in the belly down here. I also want the creature to fit in the picture plane so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm not going to make this huge sketch because then I'll have to zoom out and then you won't be able to see detail. So I'm going to try to keep it in here as best I can. Okay, so I'm just going to do an outline of maybe the hand coming at us. Maybe it's running, maybe it's just standing ready to attack. Very stubby legs. Something funny. Okay. And that's all I'm going to do. It's like a demonic little frog almost. Oh, I can't wait to hear what you guys are going to name this thing. I always ask viewers to name the creatures that I'm drawing. What would you name this guy already? I don't know, man. Probably something menacing but cute at the same time. Give it a shot. You could even be goofy with it and be like, it kind of looks like a Charles. Or maybe a Bertha or something. I don't know. Okay, so the other thing that I can do now is, since I'm quite happy with those eyes, or that eyeball, I'm going to jump over here to see if I can duplicate at least some of that expression. So I'm going to take away the top of that eye, and I'm just going to very lightly, because I'm not even done shading on this side of the head yet, very lightly outline that. Now, the other thing I want you to notice, and this is something that beginners mess up on quite often, is that right past the eye, where the nose would exist, if you go to the other eye, there's structure in the skull to block some of that corner, because this creature is technically looking a little to our left, which is going to put this side of the face in perspective ever so slightly. So that means as the creature starts to turn its head to its right, you're going to see less of that right eyeball. So this is why the nasal cavity is blocking that side of the corner. Okay. Now, I'm pretty happy with that area, so I'm just going to brush it in there, and I'm going to go over the eyeball all the way. Whenever you shade, one of the best tricks that you can do is when you start the shading process, whatever direction it may be, finish that direction. Because if you don't, what happens is you end up shading, lifting your pencil up, going back down to where you ended, and you accidentally push harder or lighter than what you previously had, and that way there's so many different layers of streaks. That's why your shading looks uneven. And then what do you want to do? You want to grab the eraser, and the worst thing ever to do in a drawing is to erase shading. I mean, it's even worse than just having an outline, because when you erase shading, not only is it more pencil that you have to take up, you ruin the coating of your paper. Okay, so you pretty much prevent yourself from having any smooth shading in that area again, even if you shade over the erased part. Okay, so this is past, I don't know, what number, like 8 or 9 for that entire head. But look at the smoothness that's happening. That's what you want. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So I'm going to darken up a little bit of this eye inside here. Not to go overboard. Just going to walk that around. And then I'm going to outline the eye socket on this side just like I did. Now, look at your creatures that you're drawing right now and ask yourself, is there emotion happening? Even with hardly doing anything. If you can capture that by small, subtle lines within the drawing, eyelids. I tell you, this eyebrow coming up, this cocked eyebrow, this is going to add a lot of emotion, because he seems angry, curious, and he's just going to attack you. So, I mean, yeah, that might be what you want, but let's see where it goes. Okay, so the other thing that I want to mention is there's going to be certain parts on this creature where when I outline it like this, it's just going to stay lightly outlined. Some of the shading that went off into the atmosphere, maybe a little, it's almost a little too heavy, or not too heavy, but a little unfinished. Here's a little trick. If you want to add fog or atmosphere to it, there are places on the outline where it's pretty loose. Okay, so you can see right up here on the head, this is darker. So this part is going to be showing up. It almost looks like there's a gap in the line. So instead of me trying to perfect that line, I'm going to take the shading very lightly at first. This is going to seem a little weird at first, but try this. Keep the strokes close together and go straight out. And then fade that off. You got to do it again at a different angle, so I'm just going to slightly turn my body and then fade it off. So it's going to look like you accidentally smudged it with your finger. But when you build that up throughout the rest of the drawing, it's going to look like the creature is bursting through fog and atmosphere at you, because we have a focal point, and the focal point is this whole section of the face right here. So this part is going to get most of the detail. Okay, so we need to figure out what's going on with the nose. You know, we can do something traditional for the nose. Just have a slit here, like a little nostril hole. I'm pretty happy with the way that nostril already looks, because I don't need anything super fancy. And I'm going to go over here. Now, this is another mistake that beginners do. It's you forget about the nose structure that's happening around the nostril hole. So there's a bump right here. Well, remember what I said about how the right eye is foreshortened a bit and it's going, you know, the head is turning? Over here, you're going to show the hump of the nostril hole, and you're not going to see the hole, only the top of it. So what that does is it looks like the nose is going to be in perspective. There we go. A lot of times, art, and when you're drawing these things, it's about what you don't see versus what you do see. There we go. And I also want to keep the same facial structure as I have over here too. Okay, so I kind of like that right there where the cheek is. He's going to get it right here too. See how this whole area is kind of squeezed together? That's what you want. Just that subtle squeeze makes it look like the face is in perspective. Now what I'm doing is I'm very gently shading just a little darker around that eye socket. I already have this one to fall back on, or not to fall back on, but to use as my own reference. This is why I wanted to establish that first eye, so that I know what the other one will look like. This is where patience comes in, everybody. So it's not going to be as dark as this one, because I want the whole side of this face to actually be coming through fog and atmosphere. And just to be lighter in general, because we're going to get darker with this side. Okay, so now that we have some of that shading happening over here, I'm just going to lightly brush that up near the nostril. Bring it up towards the brow ridge. So the brow ridge is, you know, the eyebrows coming over here. Now you can see that one of the main reasons why it's so important to have that very light first couple passes when you first start drawing is that any details that you put down over top of it, shading is already taken care of in between those. One of the hardest things to do, even if you're a rather advanced artist, is to have an outline and details and try to shade around those lines. It's annoying, and there's always this fear of ruining what you got. And you don't want to do that. So you can see here I'm keeping things very light, and I'm bringing shading across the head up here. And you can see the creature's facial expression really coming into play now. So that eyebrow is raised, and I'm keeping this one flat. Since I'm keeping this one flat, there's actually going to be more shadow on that eye, but I also don't want to get too dark on that side. So I'm thinking I may have to get darker on this side just to show that off a little bit more. Okay. Now, this is why it's so important to have a sharp pencil, so you can really get in there. And you notice we haven't erased yet, folks. So if you're watching this right now and you haven't erased, congratulations. That's what you want. You know what this thing needs. This is why we keep things light. I'm going to put little horns up here. So it looks like this horn is happening a little on the outside near the temple. So I'm just going to go over here and try to imagine, well, if the horn is on this side, then we're going to need to try our best to put that in perspective on that side, so it's not going to show as much where it's growing out of the skull. But we can put in little horns here and there, asymmetrically, just to add a little bit of intrigue and wonder to it. You know, maybe this little critter was made from a wizard, or maybe it came out of a gate from another dimension, and, you know, nothing is perfect, no matter what world the creatures are coming from. Okay, so since I'm happy with this area, I'm going to go right back and I'm going to start putting in some shading near the nose, right like that, and I'm going to darken what I originally put down there. I don't really like those brow ridge lines to show up as much. Next thing, I'm happy with those lips, so I'm just going to add a little bit of character to it and put some aging lines coming up. There we go. Okay, next thing, I need to figure out the edge of this creature right here. So I'm just going to very lightly, see, I'm not doing this fast. You can also see the pencil strokes. I like the edge of that head right there, so I know that the head's going to be that wide. But I am going to speed it up now. There we go. I'm more worried about this area being smooth, because that's the part of the head, than what's happening on the outside of the creature in the atmosphere. Okay, just worry about what you're building right now. So I'm actually going to turn my body, and I'm going to shade in this direction, and I'm going to go right over the mouth. And I'm going to keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There we go. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my angle again, and I'm going to start down here at the corner. I'm going to probably go a little slower now. I'm also drawing on my desk, so my monitor is shaking. I'm trying to make sure that my sketchbook is not touching my camera mount, because I don't want my camera to start shaking. So if it's starting to shake, I apologize. Okay. See how I'm just keeping the same pressure all the way up, and I'm actually shading over top of this head. It's all about layering. You never have to worry about layering if the newer strokes you're putting down are lighter than what you previously put down. So that way, you can always shade on top of what you drew. Just keep it light, and it's still doing its job. If you're impatient, just slow down, and if you need to, you know, get up, get a drink, look at this with, you know, fresh eyes, this is the best thing to do. So now that we're starting to have some pretty good values established here, in a second, or in a moment, if you stick around, I'm going to show you the power of a black Prismacolor pencil coupled with your graphite. It's a beautiful thing, and it's also incredibly powerful if you do it correctly. All right, so since we're focusing on this area only, I want to bring, well, this is the selling point, but then I'm going to show you what this black Prismacolor can really do, and you're probably going to be surprised if you don't draw with one, and it's your first time seeing it. Okay, so let's get the rest of the facial expression in here. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm just shading up a little bit on the forehead, and I'm also thinking about the skull and the creature's structure underneath here, so that the fat and the skin folds and everything that sit on top of it will form correctly. Okay, now you can get pretty dark already with a 4B pencil, which is nice, but the black Prismacolor just adds a whole other dimension to it. This is a crucial area, folks. Very crucial. what I'm doing is I'm stretching down the membrane, and then I'm going to add it to the gum. Now the teeth in the back right here on the bottom most likely are going to be molars, and the teeth are also slightly going to be pointed at us because the jaw is opening up. Now notice all of these teeth that I put down here, they're lightly drawn. Okay, I know that the angle has to change a little bit with the point coming at us. Okay, so once we do that, I'm just going to very, very gently outline the inside of the mouth right here, just enough to where I can see it. In between the teeth where the gum line is. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Now these teeth that I'm putting down, they are rather uniform, which is good, so I'm just going to add a little bit of a snarl to it. I guess you can call it that, or a little bit of an imperfection. You don't want to outline all of the tooth too much, because remember, I don't want to make this particular drawing cartoony. Instead, I want the atmosphere to take care of itself. Black Prismacolor pencil right here. It's black Prismacolor number PC935 if you're going to get this off Amazon. Now, before I do this, if you're using black Prismacolor right now, when it's down, it is down. These do not erase. If they do, it has to be super light. So you have to be confident about the area that you're going to apply this in. Okay? I know that in the middle of the mouth right here, it's going to be the darkest. I'm going to get pretty dark right there. So look how much darker that is. I'm outlining the edge of that tooth with this black because I know that everywhere in here is going to be that dark. I'm going to do small little circles, and I'm going to fade those circles off lighter and lighter. Now, why am I getting lighter as it's going down? It's because this creature is lit from above. That means that any part of the mouth that's open is going to catch most of the light in front of the mouth. So I don't want it to be too dark down here where the bottom teeth are. Now, over here in the corner, it's going to be pretty dark. It's the inside of the critter's mouth. And I'm just going to slowly do my little circles and fade it into what I originally drew. Like this. Up here could be kind of tricky, because what happens is, in the corner, there's still flesh. They're still part of the jawbone. So the gum around these molars are going to be a little lighter. They're catching light. So I'm just going to start up in the corner and then walk down some of these circular strokes, right, like that, very gently. And then I'm going to take my graphite pencil, so my 4B, I'm going to go over everything, lightly at first. Okay, so this combination is what is so crucial when using these two pencils together. So the texture that you get with a black Prismacolor is different. It's rougher than what you get with a graphite, which is why when you combine them, they fill different holes in the paper grooves. And also, since the black Prismacolor is wax-based, it helps keep your graphite from smearing, which is why I use it so much in my artwork. So now I'm just going to go at a different angle across that black. And all those rougher openings from the black Prismacolor are being covered up now. So you're going to hit this at different angles just like I did at first with the head. Okay, so we can probably fade some more shadow off into the mouth, but I don't want to go over the teeth too much. Just enough. It's okay if you go over the tips. It doesn't matter. Remember what I said before. If the shading is lighter than your previous line work, you won't ruin the line work. So just don't shade darker and ruin it. Easier said than done. Just don't ruin it. There we go. And I'm going to fade that off into that corner. Remember, this whole side of the creature is going to be lighter anyway. Now what I'm going to do, we're going to turn this paper again. I'm going to turn it, and we're going to hit this at a different angle. Where do I start? I'm just going to start down here at the teeth and work up some shading going vertically. See how light I was going over this dark area? don't feel like you need to force the shading on. Never force the shading. It will come. Just don't worry about that. Up here, since 4B can get pretty dark, I'm just going to put in some shading and then do the same thing up at this part and work our way down. There we go. See, the small circular strokes are going over where I ended with the black Prismacolor. That's what I want until it's smooth. No blending sticks, no erasers. It's just hand control, which is the ultimate goal, right? You want hand control, so you don't need any of those extra tools. Okay, so I'm going to move this back. I can't really turn this thing in circles just because it's going to hit the camera. Okay, so this area is still not done, so what I'm going to do is outline the tooth ever so slightly. I'm going to shade past the tooth inside the jaw. It's all about a play up on values too. So if the shadow inside the mouth is darker, which it should be, then the teeth are going to be lighter. But you want to avoid too many outlines. You don't want too many outlines. Okay. So now I'm going to go over the gums. It's so much more freeing when you know you can just shade over everything and you don't freak out about ruining your outlines or your shading or any of that. Next thing I want to do is I want to figure out how the heck I'm going to attach the bottom jaw to the top jaw. Okay, so think about the cheek right here, and I want to think about the jaw hinge. The temple is way up here. Okay, so I'm just going to put in a very subtle outline for the jaw, but I don't want this thing to pop out like a dinosaur or a lizard or whatever. Remember, this thing has more of a pot belly than anything. So what I want to do is maybe put some fat folds that are around that jaw, but who knows. At this point, I'm just going to kind of let the design happen. Okay, now I'm going to shade. I'm being very methodical about this because I don't want to ruin this joint. There's going to be shadow right here because the part of the cheekbone is casting shadow down there. If you've made it this far and you're happy with what you're drawing, I'm proud of you. Good job. If you're not happy with it, ask yourself what's making you unhappy. Okay, is it your shading ability? Is it your design choice for your creature? If it's your shading, do not erase this. Have it not only be a learning experience, but see if you can build off of it, because what we think is a mistake, we just haven't finished the strokes yet. So just keep building off of it to see what happens. Okay, now this part of the gum I'm pretty happy with. So up here where the tooth roots are, I'm just going to darken the top of those, and these things will be in shadow too. I'm outlining the skin, and I'm going to, here's the other thing, if you want to make your outlining feel more realistic, instead of just outlining and leaving that line in, okay, so okay, let's do that right here. Here's an outline, very light. Let's say you don't want that to show up anymore. You go to the edge and you do tiny little circles and you fade it into the subject that you're drawing, not on the outside, into. But the trick is when you press down to start shading, it's as dark as that outline. Can't be lighter, it has to be the same tone. So then you fade it off. So then the outline is gone, and now you have a realistic looking core shadow that's wrapping around the side. So the outline is gone, and now you can see some of the value kind of bleed into the rest of the creature this way. That's how you take care of the cartoony look if you don't want it. Next, there's a lot of opportunity to be had about the corner of this mouth. It's really cool, and I don't want to overwork the area, but man, a lot of opportunities with facial muscles, an expression, It's like this creature is just pure chaos. Like it just wants to harm things and just be mean and run at you with like a fork or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll put a fork in its hand. I think that would be kind of hilarious. All right. So I want to put the outline of the gums in here. I know the gums are going to be there. And there's the teeth. So I'm not even worried about this part yet. That will come later. I'm going to be doing a little bit of time lapse too, so you guys can see this. So I wanted to keep it small too. I didn't want this thing to be too large, because then I'd have to travel around too much with the camera, zooming out. Okay, so where are we at now? Okay, let's get in some of these outlines for these teeth here. Now I want to keep things fuzzy around the outline of these teeth. I don't want to outline them too much. You can still put in some fuzziness and still have the shape of the tooth show up. Okay, I'm probably gonna have to outline it a little bit, but you can see after I start to build up the inside of this mouth, there needs to be mouth inside, like the bone structure, the tongue, different parts of like the skin, and I'll show you how to do that. But establishing these values in here first is crucial. Remember, the values go over top of the shading that's there. You don't want to do the opposite. You can do the opposite, but you're going to risk losing your line work and the outline for everything. So if you're interested in creature design and this is your thing, you know, I want to welcome you to join our Discord. The link is in the description below. I also teach an online course called Creature Design for Film and Games. I've been teaching that for almost a decade now at Computer Graphics Master Academy. We're right now, as we speak, doing our summer term, but early signups for fall term, which starts in October, is happening right now. But if you are watching this video months and months from now, and it's not October, it's whatever else other month, we always have early signups, so just bookmark that, and we fill it. And what happens is the spots fill up pretty quickly, so we allow about 20 seats for the students to fill up, and we learn the fundamentals of creature design, reference gathering, thumbnailing, functional features, skeletal and muscular anatomy, portraits of your creatures, atmosphere, environments, all of that. Okay, so now I'm going to put small black areas where I want to show the corners of things growing out of the gum. The teeth. Okay, so once I have that, I can go inside this mouth and I can really build up where I think the jaw is going to show. I'm probably going to need my black Prismacolor for that, because this gets very dark. I'm going to go inside here. You can start to see the shape of the inside of the mouth happening now. This is key, guys. It's so key. I am building up the values. Even on the eye right here, in corners where I don't think that too much light is piercing, right there in the corner, it helps really bring out the values. I'm going to do small circles even with a black Prismacolor over top of the graphite to add a new layer of texturing. Okay, and then the other thing that I want to do is I want to darken the top of the eyeball just slightly. There you go. I'm probably going to make the eye black. I don't know. Maybe with like a slight shine to it, but we'll see. And once you really start to get the muscles showing up in the face, you can really start to layer on the wrinkles. But even before I do that, I have to go in different directions with the shading to really smooth out that area. We spent a lot of time in the corner of this mouth, and for a good reason. This is the selling point. This right here is what I want people to focus on. If you're sketching a creature right now, regardless of the angle, figure out what spot you want to show off. Okay, this is your selling point. That's where the details are going. All right, there we go. Hopefully you're having fun too. What would you name your own creature too? If you join our Discord, we have a bustling community there. You can enter monthly creature design challenges as well as show us progress for your personal projects and ask for feedback. I know that asking for feedback is rather daunting of a task, especially if you're a beginner and you're afraid of what people are going to say about your art. I don't want you to be afraid on our Discord because we're all here to help. Okay, small circles. Now we're really starting to build up those values. It's looking pretty decent. Okay, so now I need to think about what that skin is doing near the corner of that mouth. This line that I'm drawing is separating the membrane from the actual skin of the jaw. I just need to be careful about these values inside here. If I press too hard with graphite, you guys probably know this by now, if you press too hard, it becomes shiny looking. It's one of the main reasons why I like using 4B, because you can get pretty dark with it as well as light. Sometimes, depending on the angle that I'm shading, I'm going to have to just walk myself around the sketchbook instead of turning the sketchbook. Some of these angles just don't feel right. See the inside of the nostril? Put black Prismacolor in there. There you go. Okay. Some of these wrinkles could actually be darkened with the black Prismacolor. That'll really add some personality to it. Okay, let's just outline where the tongue would be. It's not going to be a fancy tongue. Just something flat, kind of like, just like the inside of a lizard's mouth or something. Just like a indication of the tongue. Coming back up into the head. Okay, so now we know where the tongue is. Cool. Underneath here, I'm going to put some value underneath the tongue. See how fuzzy and loose that is? We want to keep that. So I'm just going to shade right here. Lightly at first. And the shading is going to be as dark as that outline to the tongue, and it's going to move down into those teeth. Now, why am I getting lighter as I'm moving to the inside of the teeth, or in between the teeth? Because remember what I said before about the light coming down. This jaw is opening up. It's acting as a light catcher. So everything down here is like a ridge. It's collecting all that light. Now, the thing you have to pay attention to is your play up on values. Think about how dark your teeth are versus how light the gums are inside. So you'll probably have to darken the teeth. You don't want to keep white of the teeth and then have white of the inside of the mouth right next to each other. That way, what will happen is there's no play on values. There's no difference. There's no contrast. Okay, so what you can do is outline the tip of these teeth and make sure that the rest of the color or the tone of the teeth are that dark at the tip. And then you're going to fade it off lighter as it gets down to the tooth root. Check out those values now. Look at those teeth popping out. That's what you want. So the tip here, see how methodical I'm being? Look at this tooth right here. It's so faded that I'm not really sure what's happening. Well, what's happening with the value? Look behind the tooth. It's pretty dark. It's getting into the shadow of the mouth. This tooth is already light, so I'm just going to outline the tooth and I'm going to darken the inside of the mouth. And voila. Now we have that tooth showing up. So the reason these are dark is because the teeth are catching shadow. Remember, the teeth are kind of folding towards us. Look what's happening with my fingers. They're coming towards us. They're creating shadow underneath it. Same thing with the teeth. Look at the white of the paper behind my fingers. It's white. So now you can see the difference. Look, everybody, if you're a beginner and this is really frustrating you, and I'm trying to walk you through this as best I can, I know it can be frustrating. I know. Just have patience. Know that this is it's a slower process, but if you pay attention to what I'm doing and you have a little bit of patience, it will start to make a huge difference. I don't have a time frame for you. if you're a complete beginner and you just feel like you're terrible at drawing and you've never drawn before and you don't know what you're doing, it's okay, man. We've all been there. We've all been there. Trying to learn this stuff is not easy. But you got to start good. Like, you can't form bad habits when drawing, because bad habits die hard. Okay? And then when you get stuck in your ways, you don't want to hear critique. You just automatically think you're better than everybody, or you don't want to listen to it because you're stubborn. Throw that out the window. You're not going to be a good artist unless you accept critique. Period. From people that don't know you. Most of the time you're going to get lied to if people that know you are critiquing your art. Okay, here we go. So you can see that the membrane is already established on this side. See how I'm just jumping from place to place? I'm just getting new ideas. And making sure these values pop. So much fun. Okay, so we're not going to put nearly as much detail on that side of the face. Instead, we will put some core shadow across the entire thing. But notice, I'm not pressing harder than what I originally outlined over that entire head on that side. I'm going to walk it over. I'm going to lightly shade it so the value is smooth in between those lines. So I'm going to have to turn my body a little bit. Okay, now watch this. I'm going to go outside of the critter, into the atmosphere, and I'm going to fade that off. I'm going to hit it with a different angle too, like angle number 3. Do the same thing. Now, see how I lost the edge of that creature? Leave it. That's what you want. You want that difference. Okay? Look at this part. Look at this whole face. Imagine the creature busting through some fog. That's what you want. Also got to think about the structure of the head too. So down here, right under the nose, it's going to be a little darker because the gum line is rolled into the, the lips are rolling into the gum line. Bottom of the nose is curved, so you want to have that rounded effect. Okay, remember when I said I wanted this critter to hold a fork? I really meant that. So I think I'm just going to have him hold like a small pitchfork or something. You know, it'd be even funnier if it was a spoon. Okay, so I'm just going to draw the shaft of that right here. Maybe it's like a small spoon, I don't know. We have to make sure it looks like a spoon here, so maybe like a small opening at the top. It's not a normal tablespoon, maybe it's like a scooper or something. Kind of looks like I'm I don't know. It's a little bit out of view. Okay, so I bent it down like this. Okay. Let's put the hand here. Just an outline for it. Maybe this creature only has 3 fingers. 4 fingers maybe? I don't know. There's the thumb. Okay. We'll deal with that later. Anyway, let's see what else we can do with this mouth. I'm going to take black Prismacolor and I'm going to go inside these teeth. And inside this one. Small, controlled circular motions. I'm not worried about showing off the sharp tips of these teeth yet. That I don't even care about that right now. What I care about is the value right inside there. And I'm going to fade that off. And this one too. Remember, we're not getting too dark on this side. So do this sparingly. I'm not going to press this hard. I'm going to go inside this. You know what? I probably don't even need black Prismacolor for that. I'm just going to go inside here with my 4B. Because it's a little bit more controlled right there. And I'm just going to outline where those teeth are. And it can be ambiguous. Let some of your creatures be ambiguous in your drawings. They don't have to be perfect, like everywhere. You know, one of the things that I used to do is I used to worry about details being everywhere because I wanted to show off everything about the creatures. And I slowly realized that it was too much. It was way too much. It hurt the eyes to look at. I lost focus. There was no depth. And, I slowly started to learn that if there's just one area that you want to show off for the creature as like a functional feature or like a focal point, it's going to be much more powerful. I also learned that just by, working in games all these years and what art directors really want and what looks good. This eye is going to be shaded over. Too much white of the paper showing. I wanted the white to show of this one. Yeah. All right, so let's go back into the mouth here. I don't want to get carried away with the side of the head. Lightly, very, very lightly, I'm going to brush over the black Prismacolor so I can start to fill those gaps into that tongue. Like so. Hey, if you've made it this far, congratulations. Hopefully, you're doing your best drawing yet. Small circular motions. Let's see if we can get in here. This one, yep. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, I haven't put any details on that tongue. I don't really want that yet, but I do need to outline the tongue better right there. It was too fat. Okay, so there are certain parts of this tongue where actually I can get darker. Right in here, there might be a crevice in the mouth. Notice how I'm doing it on this side first. All the detail is on this side. That's what I care about. So any detail that I put on this side, I can quickly gauge how much I need to put on that side. So if I do something very detailed, I'll hint at that detail on this side. See way back here in the corner? Way back here. Then you have the excuse to going almost pure black. Right inside an area where it's going down the throat and hardly any light is getting inside there. But you want to use the black sparingly. Just kind of even that off. Okay. Now, as far as the tongue goes, I'm just going to outline it with a fuzziness, not a very defined line. And the tongue is going to have a wall to it. Almost like the tongue is bent up right here. So this is technically the tip, and the tongue is rolling up at us. So if that's the case, very lightly. Remember what I said before. This is happening again. I'm shading on top of the lines that I put down that are lighter so that I don't lose any of the original values. Okay, so I'm just going to get darker right under the tip. Right there. Now, I'm going to show you another reason why this is good. I'm probably going to have to get a little darker underneath the tongue. See that tip right there? Now look what it's doing. It's resting against the rest of the tongue, and it's darker, which means the same effect is happening as these teeth down here compared to the inside of the gums. So now it's going to look like the tongue is rolling towards us. I had to do this very subtly, guys. That's what you want. Now, on the tip of the tongue up here, you won't be able to see much. Just an outline. I just want to show the thickness of that tongue tip. And then I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to do anything else. I don't need to. But we do need to figure out what we need to do with the edge of these teeth. So I'm just going to hint at the sharpness of it right around the tips by circular motions. And then that's it. So notice how I kept some of this light. You see this tiny little area right here that's light? That is the edge of the tongue. The point coming at us. Now I can kind of see the tongue rolling back here. I'm going to put just some, here, we need to put black Prismacolor in there. Just a little bit. And maybe with my 4B, get a little darker on this side. See, now my angle of my hand isn't good. Right in there. Okay, that's decent. We'll keep that. This tooth needs to be darker because it's showing up against the lighter inside of the gum. It's almost like this part of the gum is really picking up a lot of light. So I don't I don't really want to change it. but I am going to put some values in right here. Because behind the membrane, it's going to be a little bit more shadowed. And I can do all of this with just the graphite. I don't need a black Prismacolor. Because it's so light over here, I don't need to get dark. There we go. I really hope this is helping everybody. Now you can see how I build my sketches up. You know, you can be on this for hours, and you're going to achieve some pretty remarkable things. But it takes patience, everybody. It takes patience. And I know, hey, it's way easier said than done. Hand control is something learned. When you know how to apply pressure and release the pressure and make shading look realistic, it's all about memorizing how hard to press versus when to press. Okay, now, I don't want white gums, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this corner right here, and I'm going to, I'll make sure I'm not shaking my camera. I'm just going to use my, I'm going to use my 4B, and I'm going to shade over top of the teeth too. Remember? I'm just going to keep saying that. Just as long as you don't get darker than what you previously put down, you're okay, until you want to get darker. See how this shading is kind of bleeding into the edge of the gums? That's what you want. Remember, it's atmosphere. It's atmosphere. Everything's faded over here. So like this little critter's is jumping through a dimension about to hit you with the spoon because it's angry. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's living and breathing in atmosphere. Okay, now let's see what's happening. Teeth are showing up quite nicely. The value of this gum line is still not good, because what's happening is like the gum or the lips that are bent over right here, there's going to be cast shadow on the gum. So actually I can get darker right underneath the gum line and have that be fuzzy. Okay, there we go. So you can see how this is darker, and then it's faded to lighter right here, but this is still too light. So I'm just going to go over the gum line right there. Okay, next thing for realism of teeth, I'm going to go to the top of the teeth and just put in where the gum line is growing into the tooth. Just those little markings go a long way into realism. Outline that a little bit better, because there's value even on the teeth. This thing is a creature, like it's probably finished eating something. So we don't want those to be pearly white teeth. It does not go to the dentist. It doesn't do any of that. It doesn't care. So I'm just going to get a little bit more value on this mouth. Okay, there we go. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Okay, the face is really coming along now. This is fun. Hopefully you guys are having fun too. You just build up the values. Now we're cooking. Going back over what I previously shaded, I'm pretty happy with the head already. So I'm just going to connect the brow ridge right here. There we go, right like this. You know, I rarely ask this, but I think it would benefit a lot of beginner artists if those of you listening right now know somebody that this could help. Share it. Just share it in your forums, share it on your social media platforms, because I try to reach as many beginner artists as possible. I want you guys to build good drawing habits early on. I'm a traditional artist, so raw pencil to paper is what I do. Okay, now we're really getting somewhere with our drawing. So I'm going to put in a couple more layers just over top of what I previously put down, and then I'm going to outline the rest of the critter. So notice how I don't have any of the arm established yet, but I know the direction that I want all of the pieces of the arm to go, just because of the way the creature's gripping the spoon. So the forearm is going to be foreshortened a tad, and then the deltoid's going to be up here, and then you're going to get the bicep down here, and it's going to be probably a fatter belly than what I originally had. And I need to gauge that as best I can. a muscular little guy. And notice how I'm not going into too much detail, so a lot of these are still rough, the lines. I don't need to do anything too crazy, but I do want to keep it as 4 fingers, so there's 3 main ones, and then you got the thumb over here. Just to make it a little different, just to add a little bit of, spontaneity to it. Okay, I still want to focus on this area, and then I'm just going to outline the rest of the creature, because for what I'm drawing now, the hard part is pretty much done to establish the focal point. So now I'm going to add in some more values right over here in the main area. And I'm also going to switch positions where I'm standing. See how I have a faint outline of this hand. Its claws are probably going to be coming out at us, but I'm just going to shade over everything. When I mean everything, I mean everything. Lighter. Okay, everything that is dark is supposed to be dark, so I'm okay with that. And as I'm putting it over top of previous layer, all of this is smooth right here. Great. So now what I can do is I can figure out what I want the skin wrinkles to do. So let's move these small wrinkles out just a tad, and I'm just going to add in some shadows like this. If you're drawing along with me and you're learning something, comment below and tell me if you're having a small breakthrough during this lesson or if you're still struggling. If you're still struggling, such as you still can't control the pencil or the pen, preferably if you're doing this with a pencil, it's probably better just because this lesson is in pencil, but you can shade with a pen, that's okay. I love ballpoint pen. But if you're having a small breakthrough here, let me know in the comments. Let me know what's working. And it could be just the way that you're physically holding your pencil too. I know that's going to sound kind of weird, but we do form bad habits in holding our pencil a certain way. If you're not comfortable with the way you're holding it, you're not going to form comfortable lines. So whatever type of grip you need to have, whatever type of finger placement you need to have in order to make smooth looking lines, practice that. For me, I like putting these 2 fingers on the top, thumb right here, and then my ring finger and my pinky finger underneath. So it's almost in the middle. Some people draw like this, some people draw like that, some people don't even grip it. They just hold it lightly and sketch like this the entire time. It's okay. Whatever is more comfortable for you. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with this area. Very lightly, I'm going to start on the edge over here, and I'm going to get as dark as that original line, and I'm just going to fade it off into the body so that I have a nice even core shadow coming down. It's going to take off that outlined cartoony feel, and it's going to be more realistic as I'm putting in atmosphere. Speaking of atmosphere, this is still fuzzy over here, which means I have a lot of opportunity to do this. Don't worry, I'm not messing it up, and you're not going to mess it up either. Very lightly take some shading into the background and just fade it off. Same thing up here, and in the most fuzziest areas, do that. I might have to turn my sketchbook one more time just to get a nice feel for it. So up here, this is darker. See that little area right there? But right next to it is light. So I'm going to take the value and I'm going to start at that light spot and go right out into the background. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to turn my page and I'm going to do it again and again and again. Well, however many times I feel it's fuzzy enough. Okay, now that I did that, see how the sharp edge right here is stopping and then it gets kind of foggy or fuzzy, and then I see a slight outline here. That's good. That's what you want. Now, this is my personal style. So everybody watching this right now, you draw a different way. I'm not saying you have to copy my style, but you can copy or use this effect that I'm doing to however you feel necessary. And I'm going back over here because I travel along my drawings quite often, so if I see something working in one area, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to shift, and I'm going to put it over in the other area. Because right now, since I'm seeing this in person, a lot of my details are kind of fuzzy. So I'm just going to take the tip of my pencil, and this is the spot, and this is the time where I can finally start putting in those tiny little details that I really want to put in all of the time. Raise your hand if you want to do it. Comment below if you're obsessed with details. I am, but the patience is what discipline, well, I'll word that better. It takes discipline and patience to get to this point. You will get to it. You have to build up the values so that you can get to it. Okay, like under here, just slightly put in really fine lines. Not a lot of light is penetrating right underneath that spot, so that's why I got really dark. And then the lip is folded up like this. It's almost like this little guy is snarling. Does he look like a Frank or a Chuck? I don't know. Maybe a Bart. What would you name this? Comment below and tell me what you would name this creature. It's so much fun too. So I think now I'm going to go back behind that eyelid. Not eyelid, I'm sorry, eyebrow. I'm just going to put in some value behind the muscle that's being moved up. I'm not throwing any anatomical terms at you. There we go. Okay, so that's a little darker. Now we can see the eyebrow raised up. So instead of outlining the lining of instead of outlining the eyebrow, I'm just going to shade the outline of the eyebrow so it looks smoother and like it belongs to the shape. So another thing that I notice beginners do is that when they start putting wrinkles and muscles in, especially muscles, they outline every muscle, and it just immediately takes away the realism. It looks cartoony. If you're not going for cartoon look, I want to make that clear, guys. I'm not telling you to not draw cartoony stuff. No. This is for realistic drawings. If you're trying to make realistic drawings and it happens to look like a cartoon, then this is where it's going to help. You have to stop outlining your every single mark. You have to let the atmosphere and the values define the realism for you. There we go. So now what I can do is I can look at all of these individual wrinkles and be like, well, I can really make that a defined crease. This is why it's good to sharpen your pencil so you can do this. I'm still being gentle with these lines. I don't want to add too much. Okay, I'm going to stop there. There's enough going on in that face to where it's believable enough. Down here, like on the side of the face right here, I'm not too worried about that. I'll put in some more lines. And then as I get in right about here, I'm going to have to define probably a double chin and the jawline at the same time. Because this bottom jaw, it's so much part of the lower body that you won't be able to see much difference. So I'll just put in like a fat fold right there, lightly. It's not a single line, it's just me going over it roughly, right, like that. And then of course we need the lip. Okay, so we have our inside of the lip here. Okay, then I'm just going to lightly define. This is where patience comes in too, guys, because if you get really excited about a certain space in your drawing, like a certain section, we as artists, because I'm guilty of this too, I was for years, we tend to rush that detailed spot and it doesn't look as good as the rest of the picture. So if you get really excited and be like, oh, this is really looking good, now I want to rush everything so I can post it and get likes online. No, stop, because it's gonna look like crap and you're gonna regret not spending that extra time and making it look good. Like this lip right here would be something that I would force in my earlier years of drawing. And we can't do that as artists. We have to pay attention to it being cohesive. So you see how this lip is forming on the bottom? That's good. Now it doesn't have a top lip per se, just because we folded that under. We could put a top lip in here. And a way to do that is, instead of drawing a line for a lip, I'm just going to put tiny little circles in and hint at a shadow and just roll it. Maybe this creature is so deformed that it might have a lip, but it's kind of gnawed away, or it just didn't form correctly. So now, and we don't want to define a bottom lip too much because then it's going to be too different. But I'm just going to put in some very subtle shading underneath that lip, because even the lip is casting shadows. Or casting a shadow because it's just one lip. So see how this is all undefined? I'm going to shade over the whole area. This is the freedom that you can have by not caring about staying inside the lines, like a coloring book. Don't need to worry about that. Just shade lightly. We can always build up values and get darker. You can't do the opposite. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now that we're getting that lip in there and the jaw part, I'm probably going to have to get a little darker right here, because this area, we're going to need to define what the jaw bone is doing under multiple layers of, I guess you can call them skin wrinkles and fat rolls and whatever else is down there. All right, our little guy is just a little pudgy little thing. Okay, in here I need to get darker, so I need my black Prismacolor. If I push too hard with my graphite, it's going to look shiny, and I don't want that. I can't get any darker than that, so I'm not going to force it. You don't need to get jet black all the time. Okay, instead, just work up the values until it looks like there's enough contrast in between any two areas. Okay, there we go. So the jaw area is looking better. This is why it's good to study animal anatomy to figure out what the jaw bones are doing. Now this is more humanoid actually, but it's kind of anthropomorphized. So what that means is you're taking animals, but you're adding human characteristics in with it. So it's kind of like the face of a dog, a little bit like a human, and maybe like a lizard or something. This is the fun part though, when you get to mix all of that together. So down here, I'm going to put in some more values because it's going to be darker right there. I'm really working this area because remember, this whole side is the selling point. That's what I want. Okay, that makes me pretty happy. I don't know what's going on with the leg yet, and honestly, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to let this drawing evolve into whatever it may be. As long as I keep the bowling ball shape of the body, I think we're good. But we will need to define, not using outlining, but using values as to what's going on with the chin and everything. It could be that the belly, like the whole body, just isn't big enough. So I might need to get a little lower with it. Kind of like a little ball like here. See how these outlines right here? This isn't ruining anything. I'm keeping it light because the shading that's going to go on top of it is going to be a different value than it. Okay. It's starting to look decent. Like right in here where the lip and the gum line kind of meet those back molars. I'm getting darker, going lighter, getting darker, lighter, and there's going to be some squeezed skin in here. There we go. There's the membrane outline. Now, if there's an area that's filled up with enough value to where you may want to add shading, but it could get a little too shiny, you know, the light reflecting on the graphite, just leave it. Don't force it. Instead, just to see what we can do in the open areas here, like the skin wrinkles that are coming out from the crease in the mouth. This is the fun part, everybody. This is when all of the layering really pays off. Because then all you have to do is just shade in the different values on top of, you know, what you originally put down. Remember that foundation that we put down first? All of the light shading? All these details are just going on top of that. That's what you want. Okay, so I think the best bet is to have the bottom of the chin right here. That'll look funny because it'll almost look like this little guy is like a snarling double-chinned demon with a spoon. See how light that is? See how loose it is? It's never defined by one single line. I'm just giving myself an indication of where it could probably go. Now all these details over here, they will not be reflected over there. Maybe some of these, depending. Like, for example, the jawline right here, yeah, I could probably put that in, but it's going to be so subtle and light, I'm not going to worry about that too much, but I do want to prove that it's there. Remember the sfumato effect? That's what I want to keep over here. So there's a lot of atmosphere happening. This little critter's just jumping right out of the fog. You know, we could be walking in the middle of the night. Those of us that likes to take nighttime jogs or nighttime walks, and all of a sudden this little critter jumps out from somebody's garden or the bushes with a spoon and is about to bite your ankles and beat you with it. So who knows? Okay, here, just very, very lightly, I'm going to work in some of the bottom of the chin. We have to be careful about this area. These have to be built slowly. Okay, there we go. So the chin, like that, the bone, it's going to, oh man, my hand isn't bending correctly. I'm going to put it right about here. That little shadow is where the farthest part of the chin exists as it's bending outward. The next thing that I want to do is I want to put some values directly under the lip. So this is going to be a neat 1-2 combo. You're going to have value right under the lip, followed by a light catcher area right here with the chin like bursting out at us. The way to do that is you keep layering. There's some blotchiness going on with my pencil strokes here, so I have to smooth that out. Smooth it out, whichever one you want to use. Okay, and over here, I'm just going to put a faint outline of the very end of the chin to show that it's like a ball coming at us. Let's give it a butt chin. There we go. Okay, now put it here, some values on the side right here. Okay, there we go. Make sure you hit those at different angles. I'm going outside the lines, even on the arm. Okay, just to give us some indication of what could exist there. And I'm thinking maybe I'll just go up a little higher with the roundness of his body. The little dip in there didn't look right. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you're enjoying this lesson. You know, comment below if you're learning something. If you're still frustrated, that's totally fine. The way I look at it is, if you're frustrated, that's a good thing. That means that your brain didn't know something so that you have room to improve. And if you're one of those stubborn artists out there, just know that we all have room for improvement. Every single one of us. It doesn't matter if we're a 30-year veteran, 40-year veteran with drawing, or you just started yesterday. There's always room for improvement. That's how you get good. Yes, repeating over and over and over and over again, the drawing process, yes, you get good like that. However, you also get better by knowing when you need to improve. There we go. Right under this lip, right under the farthest part. That's where the lip and the chin are pinched the most. And I'm just going to put that in there. And then put some more value over here on the chin crease. Notice how I'm not obsessing too much about this, the edge of the jaw. I'm just going to hint at it, and that's all I need, because that's not the focal point. But I am going to put some values over here on this part of the lip. So we need to think about what's going on with the actual gum line too. So in between the teeth, I'm going to get darker. Right in between there. That's going to help the teeth pop, especially if they're really close together. Right there. And remember how we keep the inside of the mouth lighter? The teeth are going to be darker. It's always a play on any two values coming together. See how these teeth right here are darker than what's going on in the immediate area? That's good. That means I'm not going to get darker in the immediate area. Now I'm going to outline some parts just to show that that's the gum line going into the mouth. I'm not really satisfied with this area yet. So hopefully I'm not moving this camera here. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in there. Just that little corner of the mouth gets dark. And maybe under these teeth, and then that's it. That's all I want to show. There we go. Okay. So I hope everybody has at least picked up on some shading techniques here. This is just stuff that I have developed with many years of drawing, and hopefully you guys watching right now, maybe you can give some pointers to beginner artists. Tell me if you're struggling. Tell me if you had a breakthrough. That's always great to read, and enjoy some time lapse too. So I'm going to be sketching the outline of the rest of this, but I'm not going to be going into as much detail because we have the focal point. And I'll be talking over it a little bit as I go. So that part will be a voiceover. All right, let's jump into some time lapse, and then I want to thank everybody for watching this. All right, let's go. So something that I would like to address as we're wrapping up this lesson is I get asked often, how do I know when a drawing is finished? And when you're looking at me doodle this creature right here, there's so much more room that I could be putting details in, but I'm going to leave the majority of it outlined past the face and some of the shoulders and chest. The reason is because my intent has already been shown. So the selling point is the left side of its face. We see the facial expression, we see personality coming through, we see character, we see age. All of those things happen a lot in the face. So we can get a hint of what the rest of the body looks like simply by giving it very light outlines. Now, if I wanted it to be a full-blown illustration, which I could put another 2 hours into it. I mean, we've been drawing this, for about an hour and a half now? I mean, there's plenty of room to where I could shade off the feet and the hands and everything. But I'm going to stay reserved. If you are drawing right now and you find yourself putting detail everywhere when you don't really need to, then it may be the right time to step back and go, what do I really want to show in my drawing? So let's say, for instance, you guys are drawing dragons. Well, what's the main part of that dragon? Do you want to show off the cool looking horns? Do you want to show off the really neat wing system that you have designed that nobody else has done before? Does it have a crazy looking jaw with jagged teeth coming out? That's way more interesting than having to put detail from head to toe on everything, unless the client asks that. So it's okay if they ask that. But when it comes to just sketching and thumbnailing and figuring out your designs, only put the details in the areas that are crying out, hey, show me off more than the other areas. Because what happens is, we as humans, our imagination is powerful. Even those of you listening right now that feel like you're not imaginative. Okay, you can look at these drawings and fill in the gaps. And I think that's what's going to really help you stay disciplined and stay reserved in your art so that you don't have too much detail. It happens to us all. Happens to the best of us. So I just want you guys to know that. So if your sketchbook is filled with illustrations where everything looks the same, it's a sea of sameness, just take a step back and observe. Thanks everybody for watching this. Comment below and I'll see you later. Hey everyone. I want to take the time and welcome you all to my channel. Today is just for you to take the time out and chill and draw. That's all I want you to do. So take your sketchbooks, take your pencil or your pen, whatever you're drawing with, and I'm going to show you how I like to start a drawing. Let me move this up a little bit so you can see. Got a kind of a tight quarters around here, so I'm trying to zoom in as good as I can so you can see it. I'm going to start with a ground plane. Whether or not I'm going to stick exactly to that ground plane, I'm not sure. But the point is, I want you to see how I build up a soon-to-be detailed pencil illustration of a creature that I am just making up on the fly. And I'll explain the thought process as I go along with it. This is going to be a longer lesson, so those of you that maybe you want to skip around, that's fine. I have some timestamps in here. But if you want to see the entire process, which I recommend, because let's be honest, a lot of artists out there tend to want to skip certain steps because they think they know what to do and then they end up missing it. Okay, so grab your caffeine too. If you haven't had caffeine, if this is early in the morning for you, hopefully we're going to help you start the day off right. Now, I'm doing something which is similar to my thumbnail process that I have been doing on my channel. The only difference is that this image is going to be much larger. So I definitely recommend looking at my other videos where I'm scribbling and maybe putting in some random shapes. This time around, I'm putting in some random shapes, but the markings are going to be a lot larger and more prominent on my sketch page. So the other thing is, I have to force myself to commit to the markings that I'm putting down. So what does that actually mean? It means that, one, while I do have this for an emergency, I'm not going to use it. All right. Instead, that was an eraser, by the way. Instead, I'm going to have it over here, and I'm just going to embrace what I am actually putting on the page. See how light all these strokes are? You guys probably can't even see this yet. That's the point. I want you to watch in real time as I build this up. I don't even know what kind of creature this is going to be. Pretty unconventional from what I have been doing lately. And what I have been doing lately is more scary demonic stuff, humanoid things. This one could be considered bacteria-like. And I think these are a lot of fun too. Speaking of bacteria-like creatures, study plants. Those of you that may be struggling with collecting reference and knowing how to and what to collect, just study plants. There's a lot of crazy plants out there, exotics from other countries, and the shape language that happen in a lot of those are really, really cool. Okay, you can see here that these shapes are starting to come out now. I have some claws coming out. Now the thing is, it is tempting to make this just one giant insect, but I'm not going to make it an insect. Instead, I'm just going to take design cues from insects, and I'm going to pretend that this creature is something on an alien planet that may be growing in what is equivalent to one of Earth-like jungles. Okay, how cool would that be, huh? I mean, of all the billions and billions of galaxies out there and stars where there are suns and exoplanets that are just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere, think about all the possibilities of life out there. Bacteria, intelligent life, semi-intelligent life. Maybe a lot of the stuff out there is kind of dumb, but they don't know. They're just evolving on a planet. So like there could be like dumb plants growing for all I know. Okay. So let's get some other claws out here. So I want to explain what I'm doing now. See this ground plane? I'm going to make it just a tad darker so you guys can see it. Right there. This helps ground my entire creature. It helps me realize where the limbs need to go in order to, one, grip the ground, and two, how much space it needs to take up width-wise in order to have a good stance on the ground. It's kind of like the chassis for a car, or just the width of a car in general. Does it look like it's gripping the road? You look at those awesome sports cars, the Formula One cars, they all have very wide bases, and there's a reason for that. Wide, low bases. You don't want an updraft underneath the car. You don't want a weak stance on a car, or else it'll tip over. Same thing happens with creatures. Okay, we have an interesting one here. Now, I am so tempted, and I don't know how I'm going to do this, to put a face right here. I just want to put a big demonic face right there, and I am telling myself, Bobby, do not do it. Instead, I'm going to try to make things a little bit more interesting. What if, instead of a giant claw right here, we'll put a cluster of maybe the beginnings of a claw. Maybe it's like a hand. I don't know. Maybe we'll put 2 right here, and then it will not be symmetrical. Okay, so instead, we're just going to put 2 right here, kind of like a giant random bacteria parasite. There we go. That's the word that I was looking for, parasite. It's just like a parasite growing. You see all these light lines back here? These, I'm not really sure yet what I want to do with those, so I'm keeping everything as light as possible. Those of you that are drawing along with me, make sure that all of your lines are light right now. The other thing that I want to mention, and this is something that I'm super excited about, and I just started my own Patreon. Yeah, I've been asked about this for so long, past couple of years. Like, when are you going to start a Patreon? When are you going to start a Patreon? I actually had one years ago, but you know, I invite you to stick around and watch this tutorial if you enjoy what you see, you enjoy my channel, but you want behind the scenes on my client work and how I paint digitally and doing all my bone anatomies and how I start the week off with my sketching and my client work. I invite you to join my Patreon. You can even join it for free, just to look at the stuff. And if you want some extra cool stuff, obviously you can partake in some of the tiers, and it's totally up to you. You know, you do it when you're ready. But I just want to throw that invitation out there, because now's the time that I really explain more in depth about my job and about my you know, what I do on a daily basis. So you will definitely get rewarded if you subscribe and if you you know, join my Patreon. All right, enough of that. Let's get back into the creature here. So we have some claws, but the thing about these, have you noticed that not one of them is doing the same thing? And if I find that one is, I may need to change it. So for example, I have one smaller one here, one larger one, but they're kind of mimicking each other. So what that means is maybe I'm just going to kind of wrap in that claw a little bit more so that this one is different than that one. It's all about adding interest. It's about adding chaos. All right, so up top here, it's kind of like the opening, or what would be like a pod opening up. Maybe the face is up there. Maybe it's kind of like a mini Sarlacc pit. Those of you that know Star Wars, know Return of the Jedi and all those really cool creatures on there, you know the Sarlacc. There we go. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. You see how each curled appendage is not the same? Just look down at your drawings right now, everyone, and ask yourself, does my creature look constipated? Is it stiff? Is it doing the same thing in all of the different parts of the body? If it is, maybe you can change it up a little bit. Okay, look at these little claws that I'm adding down here. I added this one coming at us. The one next to it is slightly bent in. The one next to that is going to be smaller but bent in the opposite direction. So even that has some asymmetry to it. That's what you want. And look at the big bulbous shapes here to the actual body. I got one big one that I started with, very egg-shaped. I got the medium-sized one, and then I got the smaller one over here. So I think that's kind of cool. Now, the one thing that I probably will be doing is maybe some tentacles, or a mouth that's so disgusting looking that, you know, I listen, I don't know what's going to happen. But what I do know is I want to put on some values right now. So here's how I'm going to start. Look how I'm holding the pencil. Okay, I'm going back here. And I'm just going to travel up the whole thing. So look how close the strokes are together. And the lighter and the sharper, or the lighter I'm pressing and the sharper the pencil, the better the strokes are looking. There we go. Do you see how I shaded over top and past the tentacles, or teeth, I guess you can call them, so I'm not staying inside the lines? I want all of you right now to throw out the need to be perfect at this early of the game when it comes to drawing. Stop that now. Instead, enjoy the process of drawing. I think perfection overcomes you. You, as I'm calling everybody out that worries about perfection. Perfection overcomes you. You end up worrying about the wrong things when it comes to drawing. It's kind of like wanting to be really good at drawing people, but as you start drawing a person, you worry about your drawing ability. Okay? Or you feel like you're a good sketcher, but your anatomy sucks, so you just worry about the anatomy the whole time. Okay? So we don't want that to happen. Okay, so now that we have established at least a very crude base of what our creature is going to be, my creature still does not have a selling point. So those of you that are not familiar with this terminology, a selling point is whatever you're drawing, there has to be some focal point, some major form of interest as to why you're sketching it and the overall purpose of it actually existing. This is why a lot of characters and portfolios just suck, because you're just drawing random characters that have no point to living. And the same thing goes with creatures. You're filling your portfolios up and your art up with creatures that are not functional, that can't be built in 3D, and also that don't have a purpose. You're just drawing them because you think they look cool. And I hate to break it to you, but not only do they not look cool, they don't look like they could breathe and live outside of your drawing. Okay, we all have a responsibility as a creature designer to make our creatures look like they can live and breathe in the real world or whatever planet they're on. So to jump back to the focal point, there's a big open space right here. Now remember what I said earlier about how I did not want a mouth? I'm looking at this and I'm going, if I were to put a mouth in here, how could I make the mouth something interesting versus just a big worm, like a circular worm mouth with teeth on all sides that we've seen 450,000 times? Okay? It's hard, I know. It's way easier said than done. Maybe we can have a random appendage coming out here. Check this out. So I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll see. First, I'm going to have an opening. Okay, just kind of like an unconventional mouth opening right here. Maybe there's a slit at the top. I'm throwing out these terms as slit and all of that stuff because even though you can't see it right now, I'm going to start bringing this into view here. Okay, so maybe all of these appendages here, they're going to need to be drawn first. So we have this big claw, and then we have the joint in which the claw needs in order to move. Okay, so maybe this is kind of like a miniature fat belly. Okay, and then we have the smaller ones down here. I'm not really sure yet what is going on where the ground is touching the creature. That's going to be very important to figure out later. What I need to figure out is why the heck would any of you be interested in looking at this creature? Instead of me just drawing a random plant blob, I need to take it upon myself to give a reason for it. Now, I will say that in the top here, that's probably a good selling point if it was going to have like a couple functional features. So for example, maybe there's some tentacles or holes on the side here, but the main mouth is on top. Maybe we can draw a person being slowly tortured, like I don't know, some kind of crazy Dungeons and Dragons quest going on here, and all of a sudden your player is being fed to this giant thing. Okay, wow, I really need to think about this. So I don't think this mouth is actually going to be big. I don't know what I can get away with here. So let's have like a big tentacle coming out here. Ah, I see. Oh, I'm getting anglerfish vibes. Oh, that's it, folks. That's it. Will this work? I don't know. You're kind of witnessing the same thing that, I mean, you're witnessing me guessing just to see if this is going to work. So we'll see. There could be a mouth here. There could be a lure. You know, it lures other creatures in here, or poor victims of not knowing what this creature is going to do to them. Okay, maybe I can put in hints, just small hints of teeth. Okay, now notice how those teeth that I'm putting in here, they're not the same. They're not symmetrical going all the way. I think that's another problem that happens with creature design. And that is a lot of the teeth, a lot of the fingers, a lot of the toes, tentacles, whatever, they go the exact same way and they're the exact same distance apart. They're spaced the same. Here, I want to go kind of crazy with it. So maybe there's a big tooth coming out this way. Maybe this tooth is here. Yeah, just some nutty stuff. There you go. You're also going to hear me think out loud as I'm sketching this, because it's probably happening to you all right now too. Maybe you're drawing right now and you are in a similar predicament where you don't really know what's going on with your creature either. That's fine. Another thing I really have to pay attention to is the teeth surrounding that little extra hole in the mouth in order for that, I guess you can call it, tongue to even come out of. I don't want it to cut the tongue. So I really need to think about what's happening. Okay. Hopefully you're having fun too. I am having a blast. I love this stuff. I love trying to figure out new creatures. And I try very hard to just hit every lesson with a different approach to drawing. Okay, because a lot of times you don't get to see the full process. And I'm here to show you that even if you may lack drawing skills, okay, you're not super pro and you're kind of embarrassed to show your drawings, or you're shy, or maybe you're lazy, or maybe you don't know where to start, but you really want to. I hope that my lessons are at least helping you in that manner. Okay, so we need to figure out what's actually going on the end of there. I don't want to do a pearl shape or something boring. Actually, I'm going to leave it because I don't have a good idea for that yet, and I don't want to just put one down. So what I'm doing is I'm just turning my sketchbook around. I'm really intrigued by this area over here. Do you see how I'm keeping the pencil light? And once I started the shading process, I'm actually moving up the entire surface with the same pressure. So depending on how long you guys spend on your drawings, let's say that you sit and you draw something for 6 straight hours. I'm just throwing that number out there. 6 hours, okay? There's going to be opportunities where you're going to be shading in different directions to cover an area over 15 to 20 times. Literally that much. Because as you see here, there's still strokes showing in different directions where it's not full yet. This is where the bad habit of smudging with the blending stick or your finger and trying to blend it with other means, that's where that comes into play, and you don't really get an authentic coating of graphite. There's nothing wrong with blending sticks, no. I just want to throw that out there. It's very easy to take your finger and to wipe across there and be like, I'm done, I shaded. It's like, no, you're ruining your drawing is what you're doing. Do not use your fingertip, ever. You don't want those hand oils or skin oils on that page. Oh, and by the way, did you notice, as I've been talking my process to everyone, how I started over here and I kind of got sidetracked into another area? It's okay. It's okay. This area that I originally committed to, and if you guys are doing the same, you're going to come back to this with a fresh set of eyes. So it's good to kind of work your way around a drawing. Now, there is something to be said about committing to an area and not letting up until you finish, yes. But if you're not 100% on what you want, if you're unsure about the design, don't force the design out there. Don't force some half-blown design where you're not happy about it, but you just kind of settle for it because it's done. Don't do that. Like this area right here, remember when I was putting teeth around this and I'm like, how is this appendage going to come out without accidentally scraping against the teeth? I didn't have an answer. So I'm not just going to start randomly drawing stuff in that area. I really need to think about it. Now I do know that the lip curled up right here could probably have a tooth in there somewhere for the top lip. I'm happy about that. Like that's fine because it's such a small area that it's not going to be detrimental to my drawing. Okay, but with this area right here, I'm focusing on this area even more than the giant sarlacc mouth because this, it's not full frontal. It's in front of us more than any of these other areas. So maybe there's something going on under here and this isn't even the selling point. I don't know. I'm just going to kind of travel around this drawing until I find out something about my creature that I didn't before, that I didn't know. Okay, this is why it's so important to keep things light. Have you noticed that everything's light? That's the darkest part, the teeth right there. So look at your drawings right now and ask yourself, is everything pretty much uniform? Is the pressure okay for you? I do know one thing though, I probably could get darker around these claws, mainly because I'm kind of happy with them. I know that I positioned them correctly. It just feels right. I'm not confident about the knuckles of the claws up here, but I am confident about the claw opening. So I know I want to keep that. Sometimes I'll go over it lightly in multiple passes without getting darker on that. I just kind of walk my pencil around just to see if it's what I really, really want. In between here, there has to be some kind of separation in the knuckles. Because remember, these things have bones too. So I need to figure out, like, what do those knuckle joints look like for this creature? And including the fat folds too that are going to be folding down here. Now, as I was looking at this mouth right now, something dawned on me. So these appendages coming down here could probably be separated almost like arms. So maybe they're growing out of the main body here. There's a very good chance that I'm just going to be splitting this mouth down the middle. So maybe it opens up kind of like a Venus flytrap. But it has not opened up, so I want to leave that intrigue there. So technically, not only does this creature have a mouth on the top of its head, it has a lure right here. Okay, so maybe the lure itself right here. Oh, by the way, I zoomed in a little bit. Maybe this lure has a couple spikes or something sticky with a kind of like a pufferfish shape, you know, with spines and porcupine-like appendages and stuff. I see, I'm thinking out loud here. This is what I do, everybody. Maybe that finds the food and it sticks to it, and then it lifts the food up and then it eats it from up here. That would be kind of terrifying, but also cool at the same time. Okay, so we're going to continue in this area. I'm really intrigued by this particular area, mainly because there's a lot going on. So originally, when I was drawing this creature, I was looking down in this area and going, well, this is probably the focal point. Even though this is a large area and the claws are the largest here, the focal point is now shifting towards this spot because this mouth is split, and I also have a secondary mouth here, so that offers a really good opportunity for a cool functional feature. So look down at your drawings right now if you're doing a creature and ask yourself, is the creature now having a function? And if you don't really know what it would be yet, stop drawing and just write some ideas down on the same sheet. So for example, you know, up here you could do something like snatching. Okay, you could look at double mouth. So we'll just put a little hyphen there, double mouth. And I could put poison down. Okay, so I'm just listing all these cool ideas that could be associated with this creature because I haven't decided yet. All right, but what I do know is that mouth is going to be split right here. And I'm probably just going to have teeth without any real lips or anything. It's kind of like just a big toothed hole right in the top of the head. Okay, so down here, into this slit, I need to figure out how that is actually going to open. So I'm going to keep it a simple slit like this, but maybe bend some skin and some fat folds around that split. Let's put in some more shading here. And as I'm adding more and more details on this drawing, you'll probably know, or you'll probably notice that I'm just turning my sketchbook slightly in different directions so I can smooth out the shading. Even with me going over this 4 or 5 passes now, since the first time I started this drawing, it's still not enough. So this is one that's going to stay pretty light. And I'm going to keep the strokes close together, but light. See how I haven't gotten darker on anything? I'm just keeping everything as this faint gray almost. I'm pretty happy with the slit, so here is where it's okay to get a little darker. Now with this 4B pencil that I'm using, it's one of the reasons why I love them so much. Because I can get pretty dark with it and then I can get as light as I want. I tend to control my shading with small circular motions like this. Very, very small circles, or ovals I should say. And it really helps. Now there are some areas down here, if you have come this far in the drawing and you're watching me do this and you have something similar, there are going to be some big folds down here where I know that it's going to be pretty dark in between the skin. So I'm just going to darken up some of these folds and kind of fade off the lines. Just like that. That's all I want to do for now, because what's going to happen is I'm going to end up shading on top of that again. See guys, this is when layering really comes in to play. And patience. Patience is key. It's paramount. Look at this area. See this area right here? I've hit this area more than any other on the drawing. Of course, I'm slightly zoomed in now so you can't see everything, but this is when all of the shading is really going to start to look smooth. Okay, let's see what else I can do to add to the depth here. Of course, this giant nail, see I'm pushing against this paper, the giant nail could get a darker outline, but I don't want to outline it too much because I don't want it to be cartoony. Remember, I'm going for realism, I'm not going for cartooniness. That's just my personal preference for this particular drawing. If you guys are drawing and you have a more of a cartoony style, you can still get some realistic depth happening in there. But if you're going the illustrative route and you really want it to pop off the page, try outlining less and use your values more. See that little area right in there? That's when I'm really going to start walking. That's when I'm really going to start working in some of the shading. And this is when I can grip the pencil a little tighter just to control it. There we go. Now it's starting to build up. Man, it's looking pretty gross. I definitely have to admit that. Here's another thing that I like doing, where if I'm pretty happy with what's going on down here at the bottom, there are small areas where I know that no light is touching. And I'm just going to darken some of the areas here. Now these are random spots. These are not exact, like, oh, I know exactly to put this little dark spot there. No, I'm just looking at the shape of the body and be like, well, if the appendage is coming down here like the little knuckle joint or the skin or whatever it is, and it's touching the ground there, I'm just going to put a darker line in there and kind of fade it off. That's when I know, hey, the least amount of light is touching on that particular spot. See this nail here? See that dark part there? The nail is in front of it. That means the nail is coming at us. It's longer, so that means this part's in the background. Okay, the nail is going to be even darker. And I'm going to start dark, and I'm going to get lighter. And look at that. See how much that added depth? And I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to darken the tip of the nail where it's touching the ground, and I'm just going to fade off some shading, small marks. And then I'm not done because I'm going to hit it at a different angle. There are some parts where the area is so small that holding your pencil like this to shade, it won't work anymore because it's so small. So that is when you can just use smaller controlled movements, and then you'll be able to shade it. Right like that. Turn the direction again. I might get a little darker as I come up that nail. Okay, and then the part where it actually touches the ground, I'm going to go horizontally back and forth right at the tip and spread that shadow of the nail out. And that way it looks like it's part of the ground. There we go. Okay, and this is how I build drawings, everybody. And it's just going to keep doing this until I get a final good result. And I do encourage you to stick around and watch until the end. You know, I might be playing some music in certain segments. I'm not going to be talking the entire time because I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to do here. So it's also about just applying yourself and about observation too. Check the links in the description below for one, my Patreon that I explained earlier, but two, I also run a creature design workshop Discord. Now that is totally free to join. You can join like-minded artists that want to better their skills. You can join sketchbook forums, you know, show your reference, show some projects you're working on, maybe in school, and it's just a lot of fun. The camaraderie is second to none there. And we also have monthly creature design challenges based on a brief that I give that resembles what I receive for clients or from clients. So I know I get asked that quite often. It's like, hey, can you give us a sample of a client brief that you get? It's like, yeah, it's definitely all on there. Okay. Well, it looks like that little area needs some help. So I'm just going to fade off some pencil from that really dark part. No blending stick. I'm just using my good old hand. And then I'm just going to fade off some shading from there. There we go. Okay. Now this is why it's important to have a nice coating of value across an entire area before you start putting smaller details in. Because then I can just start shading these little holes and little imperfections of the skin. And guess what? It's already shaded around that area, so that's why it's so important. There we go. So much fun. I hope everybody is having fun with this. Whenever I'm at this stage in creature design, when I have a basic outline of all of the different body parts and most of the appendages that I want, the most important thing is figuring out how those appendages actually attach to the body. So these things you have to finesse a little bit more. You really have to start thinking about the bone structure underneath. So instead of focusing on these large ones out here where it's more of finger knuckles and they're attached to like a big bulbous shape right here, I'm going to focus on this one up here. So you can see it's almost like a giant tooth, but not quite. At the end it gets a little thicker, and then here's this splitting mouth that splits into two. How can we attach this portion right here to that side part? Alright, so if it gets thicker right here, we can imagine there may be some kind of carpal bones inside, maybe a large part of a finger or a tendon, and then all of a sudden it stops right there, and then we can draw the skin and everything attaching to that shaft part. We can split those markings up. Now I'm getting technical on purpose here because you owe it to yourself to get technical, so that if you are to add shading and details and everything later, you know what the heck you're actually shading instead of just blindly doing it, hoping for the best. That's what destroys a lot of potentially good creature design, is we just kind of hope for the best, and then it turns out that like we didn't really think it through. So I'm just going to put another coating of shading right here up near the mouth. I'm just going to put it over that claw right there, because we still need to figure out what all these teeth look like. I think it's going to be pretty easy for the teeth, mainly because we have these sharp teeth coming up, and then we can get kind of thicker where it would grow into the gum, and then it would almost be like an indication of tooth roots going into the thicker pod part. It's kind of like a plant, basically. So we're going to do that, and then if I ever do this, this is where I have to think in like 20-second intervals. So I'll stop, I'll look at what I'm drawing, and then I'll add a little bit more. So this is going to take a lot more patience. So those of you right now just wanting me to jump right in to this sketch, you may want to skip ahead so that I, at the later portions of the video where I just start adding more details, or if you really want to know how to critically think so that you're designing something that's functional, please keep watching. So I can't just blindly start adding lines in and hoping for the best here. I really need to figure out how this thing is splitting. So this tooth and this tooth right next to the split, it's going to have to get thicker down here. Because you have to imagine that this split, even if it's vertical and it's not a conventional mouth, I believe it should have a lip or lips, because it's going to be like that on the other side of the mouth too. So at the bottom, right here, this is where the lip crease ends. So it's going to be folding around that slit. So I need to make sure that the skin bends and folds right down there. It's kind of like this is the main area of focus when it comes to all the skin culminating and all the potentially fat areas of the creature are condensing right around in here. Now luckily, I put down the coating of shading before, so any of these lines that I'm putting down right this second are on top of the shading. I'm pretty happy with that so far, but I'm still remaining light. This is what I warned you guys about, that this is where it takes patience. Okay, so I don't know what you guys are drawing right now, what's in your sketchbooks. Hopefully it's something that you at least are proud of, or at least it's starting to look good. I just want you to really concentrate on small little areas like I just did. Now I'm putting in some more shading, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn my sketchbook around just so I can get some good angles at what this mouth is actually doing. Now these huge, I guess you can call them trap teeth, they're not symmetrical. The whole pod opening up on the top where I guess the mouth on the head is, all of these are randomly hooked just to add a little bit of interest. Now the one thing that I could do, I could say, well, this large, very large hook tooth, there could be another one on the other side. It's not going to be identical, but it's going to be another large one. And I can open that up a little bit, outline it like this. So it looks like at least the mouth has two clamping mouth parts. It's similar to a bobbit worm, if you guys know what a bobbit worm is. If you don't, look it up. So we got that tooth. Now we're starting to see how these body parts down here, where the knuckles are interacting with this whole top portion right here. This is so much fun, but yes, it can be a little nerve-wracking at first. So I'm actually going to take my pencil and I'm going to put in some shading on that hook tooth. Speaking of the name hook tooth, what if we name it that? Every time that I draw a creature, one of the things that I like doing for you all is to ask you to comment below and name the creature. All right, so I'm naming it hook tooth, but it's not permanent. If I see something better from you guys, just I read all comments, so some of you guys have really, really good suggestions. And we also go funny. So instead of calling something by a technical Latin root, you know, where it has just like a very scientific genome name, it could be John or, you know, Susan or something. But it even those kind of names for intricate creatures, it has to fit the design. So it has to look like a Butch, or it has to look like a George. And they don't always, you know. Okay, there we go. So you can see here how I'm turning. Hopefully it's in focus for you guys too. I'm turning the page, and I'm just going to hit this at a slightly different angle. Now, see how skinny these hooked teeth are? My shading is about to go over top of them, and it's not going to stay in the lines perfectly, but I'm not pressing hard. See how it's going outside of it? Now I feel myself losing control of my pencil strokes as it gets to the tip. That's when I'm going to stop. My hand isn't moving comfortably as I stretch my hand up. I'm going to stop the movement, and I'm going to turn the sketchbook so that I can continue that comfortable movement. There we go. Because my hand moves a certain way. Everybody's hand right now moves a certain way to form the best lines possible. So this is going to be a controversial / polarizing subject within the art community. It's, do you turn your sketchbook in order to draw better? Or do you force yourself to turn your hand no matter what angle your sketchbook is at? And the answer is yes and yes on both, okay? Because you're going to get some art teachers saying you should never, ever, under any circumstance, turn your sketchbook, okay? There's a little bit of merit behind that, but also at the same time, it is good to turn your sketchbook, because we as human beings, every single artist watching me right now, we have a comfortable position that we hold our hand in and our arm to form our best lines. Because, you know, there's 8 billion people on this planet. Everybody's going to draw differently. So who's to say that you should not turn your sketchbook in order to keep your arm locked and forming the best lines? You want the best drawing possible, right? Well, you can do that by any means necessary as long as it's legit. Okay, there's no cheating here. It's just turning the sketchbook. Okay, and then sooner or later, you're going to start to notice that you can just hold your sketchbook like this the whole time and just turn your hand and have nice lines. For me personally, I mean, I've been drawing for 40 years, and I don't like sketching in certain angles. I just don't. It's just not comfortable. All right. See how I just jump around? I find intrigue in certain areas after I get excited about another area, and what that does is it culminates. It's kind of like puzzle pieces. You know, I'm like, ooh, I really liked how I sketched the tentacles and everything. I'm just going to start shading another spot because I'm in the groove now. One of the coolest feelings ever as an artist is getting in that flow state. It's so much fun. All right, now we can actually start putting in some real details, folks. The next thing that I want to talk about is to piggyback on what we started in this whole thing, is the focal point. But also, you don't need to put detail on every single thing. That's when it gets a little overboard, and what potentially could have been a good looking drawing, it's kind of turning into mush. All right, you got to be very careful about what you decide to put details on, because the focal point is what we should care about the most. Okay? It's what you're selling on your character. It's what you're selling on your creature. Okay, so there are some other parts around here. The fun part about this, and in a little bit I'm going to zoom in so you can see me focus on this area. You're going to see how I perform or how I put on atmospheric perspective. Okay, and I'll explain the process. Okay, everybody, well, it's the part that you've been waiting for. We are jumping into details now. So I'm going to tell you how to make all of these different areas realistic. So just watch and learn and practice along with me. We have established at least a couple passes with graphite. You can still see some of the pencil strokes, so we're going to get rid of those. I'm going to show you how to do it. But we're going to show you how, or I will show you how, to put each one of these tentacles in a new space on a 2D surface. Space as in 3D space, how it occupies different areas. Okay, obviously this is the focal point right here, this big one. So we're going to put more detail on that one. But this mouth also gets detail. So I'm just going to continue what I was working on before. Now these strokes that I'm using are very light. And what I'm doing, if you want to see what's happening with my hand, I'm holding it right like this. So it's a little blurry. See how all my fingers are clamped together like this, and the end of the pencil is really far or close to the inside of the palm. So I got all that space for that pencil. So that's what I'm doing. And also my whole palm is not on the drawing at all. So those of you that are worried about smearing your drawing, quit putting your hand on the drawing. Sometimes you can't help it. I totally get it. That's when you can just put a piece of paper down. Just go get some printer paper and put some paper down on top of your drawing, and it works wonders. Preferably, I believe if you go to the art store, they actually have special cloths that you can use for that too. So you don't end up ruining your paper or the graphite or anything. Okay, so I'm looking at this drawing and I'm going, well, I need to go at this angle to even out that shading. There we go. And then down here where that mouth is, I'm actually going to go at another angle again. Patience, everybody. Patience, patience, patience. Okay. Now it's looking pretty smooth. Let's start putting in some details. Let me make sure that you guys can see this okay. All right, that's looking decent. Okay, here we go. So now I'm just going to very slowly put in some roots for the teeth. Right down here. This is crucial. I can't just have the tooth root coming down. I have this huge appendage coming out of that mouth. So I really need to think about how it attaches to that. I'm going to add in another bubble shape, like another wall. So what is this wall, you might add? That is to show that the circumference of the end of that joint is attaching to that mouth. Okay, so this is a little crucial tip for all of you creature designers out there. When you attach a new body part, or when you attach a body part to another body part, it can't just be two lines meeting unless, you know, it's the design calls for it. Okay, this thing is very organic, which means that the tendons, the muscles, the ligaments are probably going to be showing. So we need to indicate where this thing grows out of the head. Okay, now before I commit to it, I actually have to double check my own thought process on that. This might not work, and I don't want to commit to this too much. You see that little bump that I put there? This is where critical thinking comes in, because if I attach it to this jaw, look how thin the jaw is right there. There's no way that jaw is strong enough to hold that appendage. So I actually will probably bring this finger all the way down into the fat fold. Now, why am I doing that? It's because inside the body here, so let's say all these knuckles, like all of these huge body parts, these bulbous body parts, underneath it is going to be the joint. I can kind of get away with saying that it's there because I'm making it look like it's going underneath everything. So we, as the viewer, are going to use our imagination to say, okay, well, that's where the knuckle's going to be. What that does, then it allows me to keep the mouth and the appendage separated while still looking believable. Okay, because what's happening is, like, this is way too thick. It's no different than drawing a creature head that's too big for a skinny neck. Okay, this hook tooth is way too big for this mouth to have attached to it. so it's not going to work. So I need to make sure that I just continue these teeth roots coming down. I may split some skin on the side here. And this is where I have to methodically place in some of these wrinkles. This is where I'm going to use black Prismacolor. I believe I have some up here. Yes. Okay, so this is a little trick that I like doing. Those of you that are new to my channel that have no idea what I'm about to do, black Prismacolor is a colored pencil that you can get separately from a whole pencil set. It is wax-based and it helps keep the graphite down, but also you can get super black with it. So inside the mouth crease, where the least amount of light is penetrating, I'm just going to color in the corner black, and then I'm just going to use tiny circular motions to fade off the black Prismacolor into the rest of the mouth, opening up, and voila. But I'm not going to get black inside that little tip, that little crease right there, only the mouth, because I want to keep the contrast going. Okay, we're getting technical, aren't we? Yeah, that's what I love about creature design. Getting technical for good reason. Let me make sure that paper doesn't bend. All right, so now I'm just going to put in some more value on the teeth only. So the teeth are going to be slightly darker than the skin. Now, this tooth is in front. Then you go back. So that means this is going to be the darkest one because it's going to show up more. Just a little bit. You don't need to go overboard. This is going to be slightly lighter. This one is pretty dark, which means that this one has to be darker than that one. And I have to get even darker in the front. There we go. We just put all of that in check. So now it has super black teeth right up there. And that's totally fine. This one is going to stay shaded, or faded, I should say. And we're just going to hint at some mouth details in the back. Okay, see these two values right here? Okay, this hook tooth, I'm just going to keep light. I'm just going to keep light because in the back, that's more filled in. So maybe this is a lighter tooth. The core shadow isn't even going to happen until over here. So I'm just going to kind of brush in the core shadow. Right, like this. Okay. We are in the technical aspects of drawing now, everybody. So if you're getting kind of frustrated right now at the shading and you don't really know what to do, just take a deep breath. Just stop my video. Just stop it. Look at your drawing. Get up, stretch, do something to where you can come back to your drawing with fresh eyes. Okay, and then we're just going to keep going. Okay, I'm really trying to make some of these shading lessons more of a masterclass than anything, because there's only so much that you can teach somebody in 20 minutes. But I just want to invite all of you as if it's a classroom and you're just seeing a teacher down the hallway and you just decide to draw with them. Okay, that's all this is. Because I remember back in the day when I was in university and that happened. I would walk down the hallway when I was in school. I didn't have classes, but I knew I needed to get work done, and there was just an open classroom. And I would just plop my sketchbook down. Sometimes my friends were in there, and we would just start drawing, just to get warmed up. So much fun, so much fun. I don't even know what material this or type of skin that this creature is made out of, but what I'm doing is just putting in some wrinkles right here. So remember what I said, I'm not filling up this entire thing with detail. It's just parts that I want to show off the most. So right in here, you see this little area right here? That's where some shadow is going to be. So I'm just going to very, very carefully fade up some shadows. Do you see how dark that outline is? My shadow has to equal that outline. And I have to fade that shadow up into the rest of the tooth roots. Now, there we go. Now that looks good. But the edge of this doesn't look good. It's a little too outlined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some circular motions and kind of put some imperfections in the tooth root. Just to show like, hey, there's weird organic stuff going on in there. So, and again, like, you don't have to be perfect, everybody. Leave some interpretation going, okay? These little markings that I'm putting here. This is just my interpretation of what I think could be happening. But I think one of the problems, well, one of the many problems that I've been listening, is that when beginner creature designers start drawing body parts and they're touching other body parts, you know, like knuckles touching each other, tentacles touching the skin, there's no interaction between the two. It's almost like cookie cutter. Okay, so like right now, we got this tiny little crevice in here. We got this huge hook tooth. We got these knuckles. And then we got the, almost like the top portion of the head here. Okay, how is that interacting? So the skin is splitting. Okay, the knuckle skin right here is splitting too. So there's like a lot of valleys inside here with all the skin just being bunched up. And the shape of this creature is being hinted at, but it's not being illustrated completely. That's what you want. You want to build intrigue like that. Okay, let's see. I don't want too much shading on top of that knuckle, mainly because it's catching light. So we'll figure out what to do there. You notice we have not used the eraser, everybody. You don't need it. You don't need the eraser if you just concentrate on what you're doing. And you don't obsess about being perfect. Then you'll never ever need the eraser. Okay. This part's going to be crucial because all of these are in different areas in the air. All right, so once we move up here to this area, all the tips are going to be slightly darkened. And this is going to help separate them from the spacing in between each one and also just let you know where they actually sit. Now, I'm not I'm not heavily outlining them. All I'm doing is just adding like a brush of graphite across there. Just like this, very, very light. So everybody, if you're doing something similar to me, if you have a tentacle that you're drawing, a tooth or something, or a claw, just make sure that you keep the strokes really, really light. Okay, and then you can move over here, or I will move over here to these. I'm not trying to be perfect either. I'm just indicating where the tips are. I haven't gone into detail. Okay, so now we need to, oh, this one. This one probably should get a little bit more. Tiny little circles. And then of course, this one too. So you see this tentacle is in front of that one, so that one's going to be darker. So instead of erasing something, I just adjusted based on how hard I'm pushing. And the same thing goes with the tip of this one. This one's in the front of everything. So this one is pretty much going to be as dark as that front tooth. It's pretty much in the same plane. So I'm just going to darken that part up and then fade it off into the rest of the tooth hook. I keep calling them teeth hooks. Probably because that's the best bet. Okay, so after that, then we can start putting in some more details. And I really like this one in the front. So I'm just going to keep playing up that core shadow there. Now, the one thing I do want to mention is that I'm not going to be speaking for this entire thing, so I also want to give you guys some time to relax and just watch me do it. So I'll play some music here in a moment. You know, I understand that these lessons can be taxing on your patience, even for the most patient people. Drawing takes a lot of patience, so I'll try to explain these processes as best I can. Like this. Okay. So as far as atmospheric perspective goes, see that cluster right in there of where the tentacles are coming out, but you don't know what they're attached to. It's kind of all the same. We're going to lightly hint at the wall of the giant mouth. Very light. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring some value back up into the mouth. So I'm going to go upward. I'm going to darken that tooth. I need to see which tooth is lined up where. This one's in the front. I'm going to darken that one, make sure the next one is not as dark, and then so on and so forth. So this one should get a little darker, and then this one's going to get even darker than that one, so I may have to go back and adjust these. It's all a play on any two values next to each other. So this one is definitely going to get darker. And then this one is going to be darkest. There we go. You see how that happened? And I didn't freak out. I didn't grab my eraser. I didn't do any of that. And of course, we're going to indicate some really cool teeth on the other side of the mouth happening. And you want to be asymmetrical, so no two teeth are the same. Some of them may be razor sharp and hooked. Others may be straight up, like a knife. But that just adds to the appeal of it. Okay, so the other thing I want you to notice that I'm doing, and we're getting technical here, everybody. These teeth, you see this row of white happening right behind the teeth. I'm leaving that. The reason I'm leaving it is because the gum line in the forefront right here is darker. So we want to add as much contrast as we can so that we can see what the shapes are doing. So there we have it. This is darker. Now we can clearly see the gum line followed by the teeth coming out. It's already looking like this is in the background. And I barely did anything, everybody. It's not as hard as you may think. It just takes layering. That's all it is. Just a little bit of strategic thinking mixed with layering. And what I mean by strategic thinking, I don't mean that you have to solve like mathematical equations in order to draw this. It's draw a little bit, take a step back to see if that looks okay. It looks decent, continue. Okay, it's going to attach to this mouth. So I'm just going to darken it up a little bit. Take a step back. Now you see that, remember how we drew this going all the way down inside the folds? So we're just going to continue the mouth down there. This first mandible, I guess. Of course, this one's in the front, so that one can attach to that one. Maybe this one in the back is going to be behind it. And of course, this one will be a slightly darker tone. Nothing is perfect yet. I'm just darkening this up in the forefront or foreground. There we go. You see how that's coming up past this one? That's what you want. All right? And then you're just going to keep playing off of these values as you go. These in the background, they're barely going to get any treatment at all. This one, yes, because it's coming out and it may be going through some fog. So I'm just going to darken this wall up until you can see it. And that's it. It's really fuzzy. There's no details on there. It's just fuzzy. The one behind it stays that way. I'm not even going to touch it. If I do touch it, it's going to stay that light tone right there. I'm just going to go in a different direction. Okay, maybe go outside the lines just a little bit. And then I'll fade in some more fog coming across these areas. And there you have it. Okay, so like areas on the side of this mandible, I'm just going to put some atmosphere and some fog, maybe some mist kind of being pushed through. And then I'm going to fade it off into the background. And there you have some atmospheric perspective. And I didn't touch my eraser. I didn't use my finger. I didn't use a blending stick. It's just my hand, the pencil, and some paper. So I just want you to know that you are capable of doing this. Now, it's probably not going to happen the first time. And I give everybody permission right now to be upset, to be frustrated. You have to go through those emotions because, listen, drawing isn't super simple, okay? It takes time, it takes process, it takes patience, it takes due diligence. However, I just want you to know that little by little, when you add in those baby steps, they start to accumulate and you're going to start to see your skills gradually improve. Sometimes you're going to hit a milestone and it's just going to be like an overnight thing, like an overnight sensation, a one-hit wonder maybe. Well, no, not a one-hit wonder because you want to keep doing it. You know what I mean. Okay, so here I just want to make sure that everything is smooth on this one. Right, like that. So one thing I do want to mention before we go again is, if you're interested in more behind the scenes on what I do for a living and how I look for reference and how I explain anatomy and really in-depth lessons, feel free to join my Patreon. I just started it. I'm really excited about it, and you can join for free too. You can decide what you want to do. The link is in the description below. It's the first link. All right. Here we go. Okay, so without further ado, you can watch me finish this top portion, and then I may add some details along here. I still got to finish this sucker too. I don't know what's going to be on the end. But let's have some fun, and we'll see where this goes. Do you want your creature sketches to feel alive? In this video, I'm shading a werewolf head from scratch, and I'll show you the exact steps I use to push form, to push texture and atmosphere into the design. Now, the werewolf is one of the most iconic creatures in folklore, but capturing that raw feral energy on paper takes more than just sharp teeth and fur. So today, I'm going to show you how I shade that head from start to finish. And I just want to say that I'm using a 4B pencil and I'm sketching on moleskin paper. So if you have the tools necessary to draw, it doesn't have to be expensive stuff. Okay, you could be sketching on any type of paper you want, but I will say that sketching on smoother paper is probably going to bode well for your shading. If it's too toothy and rough, it doesn't matter how well you shade, it's not going to look good. So keep your pencil sharp and let's sketch that werewolf head. Alrighty, here we go. I'm really excited about this drawing because of all the creatures that I draw, werewolves have always been my favorite. I grew up watching werewolf movies as a child. I'm an 80s child, so we're talking American Werewolf in London, which is my favorite movie of all time. And then we have Howling, then we have Dog Soldiers, Company of Wolves, we have the Underworld movies, we have Van Helsing, we have so many really cool, iconic werewolves out there. The head that I'm going to be sketching here is more of the traditional werewolf. Now you're going to see how I actually build from scratch. Notice how I keep things super, super light. This is a problem right off the bat with a lot of beginner artists. Artists start way too dark. And the problem with that, even if you have this image in your head of exactly what you want, you have to give your room to build off of the lighter sketch. This is why I emphasize thumbnail sketching so much. So with this, you can see the very light lines starting to form shapes. Or I'm forming the shapes with light lines. Yeah, it's probably better to say it like that. Okay, now if you're sketching along with me right now and you're starting lightly, bravo, that's a very good start. And I want you to throw out the window any notion of being perfect. Do not worry about what you think the creature that you're drawing should look like when you're finished. That is immediately going to put you in a state of panic, and you're probably going to give up halfway through the sketch. So if you keep things light, like I'm doing right now, you can build off of those light lines into something better later. You will notice throughout this drawing, so stick around because you will see it. I do play with the perspective, but I don't use an eraser, and I actually was incorrect about the perspective several times. I corrected the perspective because the lines that I was drawing were so light that I was able to overcome that and sketch over those and get darker as the sketch progressed. So hopefully you catch that. I'll just say right off the bat, I had some trouble with that werewolf's right ear that I'm drawing right now, because originally these were just two dog-like ears poking straight up. And then when I started adding fur, the head got thicker. And as it got thicker, it started taking up more space as it wrapped around the atmosphere with its right side of the skull. So you'll see that. These are just some problems that you'll encounter throughout your artistic journey, regardless of what you're drawing. Now, at this stage, I'm pretty confident about the shape of at least the eye sockets and the cheek. So this is why I'm already putting in a light coating of value in one direction across the face. I don't want to turn my sketchbook too much right away. I want to make sure that what I'm putting down is going to stay down. Now, these strokes are very close together. This is why it's important to have, see, there I go, I'm turning my sketchbook. This is why it's very important to have sharp pencils. Too many of you draw with these dull pencils, and then your drawings just, they don't resonate. You're not able to get details that you should be able to get in certain areas. So do your due diligence and sharpen your pencils, even if you have 4 or 5 pencils next to you. So here, the other reason why I like using a 4B is because for me, I'm able to get darker with the 4B and lighter, and it's all with the same pencil. Now, ultimately, I'm going to stress this in every single video that you see me shade in. Ultimately, you want to be able to do a drawing from start to finish using only one pencil, because you don't want to have to spend money and go buy an entire pencil set. Okay? People ask me, how do I get such light lines? And I just simply tell them, I don't press hard. Yeah, it's kind of a cheeky, snarky response, but I'm not trying to be cheeky or snarky. It's just, don't press hard. You learn the pressure. Okay? It's a little easier said than done. I totally get it. It just takes repetition, folks. So if you're drawing right now and you're getting angry because you can't press lightly and then gradually get darker in the same stroke, just practice some lines every single morning. I have my students open up their sketchbooks if they're taking my mentorship, and I tell them, hey, if you're not used to drawing, draw 500, yes, 500 straight lines across your paper every single day for a month. Now, if you do this and you keep up with it, you're going to have about 15,000 lines in 30 days? So imagine if you keep going with that, because what happens is all these tiny little details I'm putting in here, I'm not pressing hard. All right, I'm just concentrating on certain areas. Now, some of you out there may build your sketches differently, especially if it's a character or creature. I like to put emphasis around the eyes. I like to bring out personality. I like to set the mood with the eyes. One little thing I do want to talk about with the eyes is that there's a difference between friendly and there's a difference between scary. Now, there's many different types of eyes that you can do. In past tutorials and videos that I've done, I have mentioned that larger eyes tend to be on the cuter side. That's not to suggest that you can't get scary with larger eyes. But I like to make them a little smaller and more rounder, taking out the noticeable corners of the eye, because we have corners in human eyes. I like to make it round. I like to make it a little bit more ambiguous and sometimes demonic, sometimes ghostly, and like a banshee or some kind of interdimensional being. It's easier to go round. And then what you do is you darken up the lines using small circular motions, tiny, tiny circular motions around the eye socket to darken it. Not to make them look emaciated, like they haven't slept in 29 days, but just enough to put a little bit of shadow around their eyes, a little bit of mystery, intrigue, danger, fear. Think about the eyes of a shark. Think about the eyes of a squid. What does the eye of when you look at videos, National Geographic, when you watch Jaws, whatever you want to watch as far as those animals are concerned, the eyes are just round, merciless, jet black, and all they want to do is look at you as they're eating you. The creatures are eating you. Okay, so obviously, since we're sketching a werewolf here, what better to do than to put round eyes in there? Okay. See, originally I was going to draw a 4-legged werewolf because I had American Werewolf in London in my mind, but I just stuck with the head. The rest of the drawing will probably get finished at some point, but that wasn't the point of this video. So a lot of times, if you have trouble figuring out what to draw, especially if you're doing a creature, just do creature heads. Everything that you could possibly need to learn to draw creatures usually happens in the head anyway. The head is very complicated. You got skulls, which are beautifully intricate. You have personality coming out, facial expressions. I mean, expressions are endless, especially when you're looking at a werewolf and it's snarling at you. If you do an anthropomorphic character, you have different facial expressions. I mean, sad, angry, confused, embarrassed, all that kind of surprised, all that kind of stuff. All right, so the face to me is a very good way to get aging, to get facial expressions, personality, get an overall feel for what I want the rest of the creature to look like, actually. Now, if you're doing a creature that is totally otherworldly and so alien that there is no reference that you can possibly look at online for it, then your best bet is probably not to have any eyes or draw 50,000 eyes on it. It's up to you. Okay. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate this. By the way, if you're enjoying this tutorial and you want to go a little deeper, I have recently started a Patreon. So it's where I share things I can't always fit into YouTube videos. Stuff like deeper anatomy studies, behind the scenes sketches, especially for client work, NDA approved, of course. And this is where I'm going to hold the majority of my live streams. Now, I will live stream on YouTube, but you've probably noticed I haven't done it that much. So I'm going to save that for the Patreon. There's a free tier too. If you just decide you want to follow along, great, you're welcome to. I'm going to have something for everybody. There are some extra perks for those of you that want more. So be sure to check out the link in the description below. It's the first link. It's to my Patreon. I just started it. So I welcome everybody. And I'd love to have you there. Okay, back to the werewolf head. Or, in technical terms, the lycanthrope. Hey, I want to throw out a little bit of information there. So, if you're familiar with the lichen movies, and you have no idea what lichens are, it is short for lycanthrope. But they don't say lycanthrope in the movies. They just want to sound cool and just say lichens. So it does sound cooler, But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there because I've heard that over the years. People are confused about what a lichen is. And it's just a short version of lycanthrope. Okay, here we go, folks. You can see it start to slowly but surely build up. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm experimenting. I'm exploring the face of this wolf. Notice how there's no hair yet. I originally had a row of spikes going down the spine. Because believe it or not, it wasn't originally going to be a werewolf. It was going to be just a four-legged dog creature, similar to Riddick's pet, in the Chronicles of Riddick. The really cool desert dog that he befriended in the latest Riddick movie. All right. And now that I'm building up some contours, getting some facial, recognition going on there, some muscles, I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with it. And I realized, and this is why it's so good to start light and to keep things light, I realized I actually had room to put hair. I didn't get too dark with the skin tone, which is good, because the hair was actually an afterthought. So I just decided to put it in. Now you can see here that this is very important to build atmosphere and to build value. I am putting an entire coating across that head. And I'm going to go in direction number 2, which is going to fill the gaps of the original strokes. And time permitting, I kept it at just a couple different passes. Now, if you are new to that technique, this is something that I've developed over the years. I'm not the first person to shade like this, though, but I have found that the way I like drawing things and putting fog and atmosphere in the picture, this is the best way to do it. Because what happens is each new pass, without pressing harder, you actually have a very nice coating without being silly and using your finger. You don't need blending sticks. You don't need erasers. Like, none of that. Relieve the stress, folks. Now, it's a little easier said than done, because if you get stressed out about shading, then there's something else going on that doesn't have anything to do with shading. It's practicing hand pressure. Once you do that straight line technique that I was talking about, 500 straight lines a day, preferably in an 18 by 24 sketch pad, 18 inches by 24 inches. If you're drawing in a too small of a sketchbook, then your drawings are going to look too small. They're going to be too confined, and the more confined your area is, guess what? The more detail you're going to want to put in it. All right, here I go, putting in the bottom teeth. Now I'm making sure that the teeth are well enough that if the creature were to bite, that it looks like both jaws can clamp together. Now there's something to be said about just drawing something insane and having teeth poking out everywhere. See, not to really change the subject here from teeth to fur, but I'm slowly starting to scratch in light outlines of where the fur is. There was the back, the hunchback. I kept eyeballing that area. I'm like, well, maybe I'll put a leg in there. It's like, no, I didn't put a leg in there. Instead, I just started shading. All right, if you've made it this far, hey, congratulations. Comment below and let us know what you're working on. Let me know what your struggles are. I read all comments. I do want to give a disclaimer, though. Some people ask questions that require a more in-depth answer. And if I just give you a heart, please know that I recognized you. I acknowledged your question, but I am not ignoring your question. I just simply cannot answer in long form on YouTube all of those questions that I get. Save that for the Discord. So check the link in the description below for our Creature Design Workshop Discord. It's not just about creatures. It's about just learning how to draw and approach this awesome thing we call sketching. Even if you feel like you suck and you can't draw at all, it's okay. You know, I do read all comments, especially from the trolls. I love you, but you know, please don't troll my channel. But yes, please troll my channel, because it's a lot of fun. I love you all. Anyway, that was probably a terrible invitation to troll my channel, but just try to keep things light. There are the molars coming in. And notice how there's a play on values here. So this is going to be a tricky area. Inside of the mouth, all I have is one pencil. I have teeth started. I have hair started. This is the moment of truth, everybody. How do I build up values around that mouth to make it look realistic with just using one pencil? Well, just make sure that you watch. And if you're watching along with me and you're drawing along with me, hopefully by now you're keeping things light and you realize the power of not going too dark. Some of the most powerful drawings I have ever seen in my life had no shading whatsoever. You know, a lot of people throughout the decades have not liked Picasso's art. But what people fail to realize is just how darn good that man was at drawing people. And he made a conscious decision to make abstract art, but his figure drawing was phenomenal. His line control, his sketches, great. So, I don't know where I was going with that. Picasso just jumped in my mind. You know, everybody has their own tastes in their art. Anyway, for me, I'm more the realistic type of artist, so I love doing that type of stuff. This type of stuff, I should say. So here, that was kind of a happy accident. That little line that I put in the middle of the forehead, originally I was just going to furrow the brow, and then I thought, well, I kind of do like stripes down the middle of a furry beast. So I just decided to darken the fur or hair I don't know if werewolves have fur. I just started to darken the hair. You notice that the shading that I'm doing right this second, try this out, everybody. Tiny, tiny little circles that overlap each other. What that does is each new circle that you place down on the paper goes over the previous circle. And if you keep going in a straight line, it kind of corrects the mistakes or corrects the openings in graphite that you may have had in the previous stroke. It's pretty cool. I also hope that I explained that correctly. I've gone over it many times in my previous videos, especially for shading. So just make sure that you check out the other videos that I've had for shading, especially the last couple videos. I think those are very important. I had a couple videos where I'm drawing for well over an hour and a half, just so you can see everything that I'm doing. I do love the longer videos, but I also understand that, we as human beings, our attention spans are not very good once we hit the 30-minute mark. Okay, so this happens in school all the time, man. Whew. I remember back in the day in industrial design, we would have the 3-hour studios. Loved it. I loved those times, just drawing with friends and classmates and just big sketchbooks, listening to techno music, drinking Red Bull and all that stuff. But when 30, 45 minutes hit, I was ready to leave. I was ready to just leave the room or go eat Chipotle or something. I don't know. Okay, look what I'm doing right here. The shading is going past the ear. The shading is going past the teeth, past the cheek, past the nose. Everything. And it's flowing into the abyss on the side of the werewolf's head. Let that happen. Because notice, the strokes happening right now are lighter than anything I've drawn on the face. So you can't go wrong. Just don't press hard. These things you have to build up over time. Every new direction fills in previous gaps. Now, there are some times when you're illustrating and you may be on pass number 10, pass number 15, and by that time you should have something very smooth. But it takes patience. So there is patience to this. Okay, I'm having fun. I'm having fun just talking about it too. Some of the lessons I give, I talk as I'm drawing, but I feel when it comes to the really detailed stuff like this, I would rather just do a voiceover. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I try to experiment with different ways to film videos. I'm old school. Look, guys, I've been doing this channel for a while now. You probably know that I don't edit. I mean, I do edit, but the whole point of my channel is to teach people how to draw and, just for the love of the art. And I just want people to pretend like they're just walking down the hallway at school and they see their teacher drawing and they just want to join the drawing. That's all. That's all it is. How are those drawings coming along, by the way? Comment below. Let me know how it is. And also, I will invite you to show your drawings on our Creature Design Workshop Discord. So check that link. Check that Discord out. There's a lot of stuff going on there. We have, oh man, I think we hit 7,000 members. I believe so. There's an influx of new aspiring concept artists literally every single day. And we have monthly creature design challenges based on a brief that I give that closely mimics what I have experienced over the years from clients that may not know what they want. And those are actually the most fun. You could probably get frustrated by that. Okay. Those of you industry veterans out there, comment below too if you've ever worked with a client that didn't know what they wanted and you had no idea what you were drawing ever. Sometimes it's fun because it's like a blue sky phase, it's your sandbox. You can just do whatever the heck you want. Just start drawing stuff. It's a lot of fun. I'm not saying it's always fun, but most of the time it is. See, this is where, remember in the beginning of this video, I was saying the perspective is a little off, and as the head got thicker due to fur, I had to change that over on the side. Here I go. I'm actually being very cautious. I thought I screwed up that right eye socket, I was going to leave in some white to show the eyeball. And then I thought, you know what? Let's just run a core shadow down that area. Let's fade in some atmosphere, some fog or whatever, and then I think it'll probably work out. All right, working on those bottom teeth. Also, when it comes to teeth like this, and when it comes to just shading stuff, don't be perfect with the teeth, everybody. It's okay. You don't have to show every single little gum line, every hole in the gum where the tooth is growing out of. No, that's not necessary. Just play up on values. Just look inside the mouth right now. The sharp teeth on the bottom jaw are poking out because they're darker than what's on the inside of the mouth. Why is the inside of the mouth darker? Probably because light's getting in right in that spot. Yeah, it's just a play on any two values meeting each other, or three values, whatever. But it's usually just two, side by side. One is darker, one is lighter. If they're fading into each other, that's a perfect spot for atmosphere, which is exactly what's happening right this second. Do you see the side of the wolf's head? It's so fuzzy that you can't really tell where the cheek is. You can't really tell where its right ear is actually starting. So I'm checking the perspective there, by the way. That's the fun part, everybody. That's not the guessing game, but it's your own interpretation, basically. It's so much fun. So much fun. Adding tiny little circles in there, that's also fun too. You know, to go back to my favorite werewolf movies, the reason I like American Werewolf in London is, Rick Baker is probably one of my favorite artists of all time, the werewolf, or the makeup artist. I called him a werewolf. But, that werewolf is on all fours. And it's rarely been done. I think Company of Wolves did it, and maybe, the Twilight movies had it, but those wolves are so massive. They just look like mastiffs. But with American Werewolf in London, I think one of the things that terrified me most wasn't how it looked, it was how it howled, how it sounded. So, pet peeve of mine is how goofy the werewolf howls sound in movies. I know that sounds kind of weird, right? You get this huge hulk. I remember when I saw the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro, and he looked awesome in that movie. And then he howled, and I'm like, what was that? Or when they put in real wolf sounds, and the werewolf itself is like 9 feet tall, and it's like, no, the dinky little sound isn't going to come out of a mouth like that, But I think the howl sound in American Werewolf in London is still the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in a movie. It's just terrifying, especially if you're, have it on surround sound. And I remember when surround sound was really popular in the 90s. You better believe we had all of our movies on surround sound then. You probably noticed by now that I like talking about movies when I'm drawing. I like watching movies when I draw too. If it's not movies, it's crime shows. So I don't know where I get that combo from, and they're just fun. It's kind of like mindless television that you just watch while you're drawing. You want to watch those shows that you don't have to think hard about. Okay, so back to the drawing here. Notice how I'm not putting in facial muscles per se, but it's more of the hair sitting on top of what the muscles are doing underneath it. So that's why I'm doing these small, tiny little markings and just kind of walking the pencil around the picture and just exploring. The thickness of that chin area, the whole body, man, I'm really, really glad I stayed as light as I did. Okay, so this next portion of my sketch, I just ask everybody to sit back, relax, and watch me draw this. I'm not going to be speaking, but instead I'm just going to be playing some music, and make sure that you guys keep your pencil sharp the entire time, and just concentrate on specific areas that you want to shade, and let's see what you come up with at the end. All right, have fun. you.